Sorry, guys. Let me unmute myself. Welcome in, everybody. Wait, this is the Anger
Hello,
Management
everyone.
Podcast. Mike, Anthony, Mike. See, this is what happens, guys. You end up trying to get things right in order. You want to make this a better place for you guys, a better podcast, all this stuff, right? I literally just went over this with Mike. That the best way for me with this new microphone I got is to mute myself so I can have a better listening and better experience for you guys. And I come right on here and forget to unmute my mic. I'm very sorry about that. Once again, we are here, Anger Management Podcast. Anthony, Mike, what is going on, Mike? How's it going?
But anything like that, it's always a covert operation.
No,
The government's involved somehow, some way. It's all about keeping track of everybody. It's Big Brother, folks.
I know,
So that's everything
I
we're
know,
experiencing
I
right
know.
now.
My fault, my fault. But we're here. We're on a different time because guess what, guys? We are here to do the Selection Sunday show. We just obviously
Yeah.
seen that it's time. March Madness is back. Brackets are in. We're going to kind of go over that a little bit with you guys. We're going to talk about how we feel about the bracket, how it looks, kind of some of our sleeper teams that we may have. But just have a little bit of fun with you guys. We will probably be on here for maybe an hour or so. If we decide to, we might jump into a few more other things outside of the bracket. We got a couple of basketball things to talk about, a few things like media things, stuff like that that we might want to get into. But first, let's just get into basically what we're here for, Mike, right? And this is the bracket,
Yep.
right? And guys, I have the bracket here behind us. It's a little bit hard to see. I hope you're able to see it. If not, we're gonna go over this here. But obviously, Mike, let's start here in this top South bracket where number one Auburn takes that one over. It's. Are you by any chance? Are you surprised by a one at all? I'm not this year, but are you?
No, I'm not. I'm not surprised. Sorry, folks. I'm not surprised by any of the four seeds, but I knew that Tennessee was going to be. It literally was going to come down to some of that with the SEC, and obviously the SEC getting 14 teams into the tournament this year is obviously going
That's
to
insane.
be
That
a
is a
record. That
record
is a record.
too. So that's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
14 teams.
Uh, yeah. So with Auburn, I wasn't surprised by that. What's interesting though, if you look at it, one seeds, and Auburn has struggled. They've lost three of the last four games. And on an interesting side note to that, throughout the NCAA tournament history, no team coming in with that type of record and that type of seeding has ever gone on to win the tournament. If you've lost three of your last four at the back end going into the tournament, you have not won the championship. Obviously, it doesn't bode well for Auburn, so we'll see how that plays out. They've got a formidable unit. I think they've got a favorable bracket, which will work in their favor. I thought, as a matter of fact, I thought a lot of the number one seeds benefited from a decent bracket
Yeah.
setup. Never guarantees anything, but the ability to navigate these regions is going to be a little bit easier potentially, at least until you get to maybe the 8, the 4, that type of thing. So we'll see how that plays out. But right now with Auburn, good setup for them. Let's just kind of see how that plays out.
Definitely. So obviously, all the four number ones are Auburn, Duke, Houston, Florida. Um,
Yeah.
Now, for you, Mike, do you see all four of these ones going to the Final Four? Which one of these do you have going? Do you like any of these ones to? Is this a year maybe no one, get to the Final Four?
It's rare that I favor all four, and you and I both know your dad. We've talked about these over the years, and a lot of people out there know you follow the tournament. It's very rare. It's very rare to get all four into the four number ones into the Final Fours. It's probably not going to happen. I really feel strong about Duke. Flag looks like he's going to be able to go at a high percentage, which is good for Duke. Florida looks like an absolute beast coming out of their region. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. Houston's going to be difficult, obviously. And Auburn, we just briefly talked about. I really like Duke and Florida right now. I could potentially see these two teams reaching the championship game. I just think right now, I think Duke for me and Florida on a collision course. Injuries can play a part. We know how that goes. We're talking about 6 games here, 5 to get to the chip. So we'll see how that plays out. But right now, I feel really, really good about Duke and really, really good about Florida. And Houston is actually playing. And I have not been a big Houston fan. Anthony can attest to this. I thought their conferences didn't allow for them to be very competitive. Then they switched over to the Big 12. So I think that's helped them. I think that's established a better mental state. made them a little bit more competitive. So I think this is the best team that Houston has offered probably in the last 3 years.
No, for
So
sure.
we'll see how that plays
I
out.
agree with you on that. Definitely. I do like the number ones. I was really big on watching Auburn. I thought maybe Auburn kind of could run through this. They kind of like one of those teams at the beginning of the season, even towards the end here, but they've now kind of fallen off. They had a couple of bad losses, right? Duke obviously is another team that looked like they could lead the way to at least an easy Elite Eight, right? Until the Cooper Flag injury during the
Yeah.
ACC tournament. He should be fine. I think he's gonna come back. He'll be good to go. Obviously, you see though what kind of a team Duke is without Cooper, though, right? I mean, we seen that they struggled. I believe what was it Wake? Was it Wake or Tech? Did they play in that one when he got hurt? Either way, and then even in
I
North
think it's
Carolina, they did struggle with Carolina, only pulling that off by a 3-point win. So I do like all of these number ones. I do agree with you on Florida. I think maybe Florida would be one of those teams where a lot of people don't realize how good they really are. They definitely could make a push for that Final Four. But I
oh
can't
yeah.
see any of these. I can't see any of these ones make. I can see it being an all one Final Four. For sure. But there's a lot of other teams, and we're going to jump into this. But before we do this, because we were going to get in this bracket, but I actually want to get into these. I forget about this. But the first four, there's a team down there that's kind of hard to even kind of say that should be even be in this. Hard on us because we're fans of them, but even hard to see that number 11, and that's UNC, right? North Carolina. Um, Mike, you and I, we've talked about this, a lot off, air. We've obviously known that Roy's no longer there. Hubers take over the team. I don't think he's a terrible coach, right? I think he's very good. I think he just has a lot of work to do, and it's hard now. It is so hard to be a coach in college football now with this portal stuff and all this extra things, and that's something we're going to
Basketball
get
too.
into, at a different time for us, but that we talk about. But seeing North Carolina as an 11 seed being part of that first four, we both talked about it. We both almost thought UNC didn't even deserve to be in, but now that they're in, what does this mean for them? And do you see them making a push in this tournament?
No, and again, folks, for those that aren't familiar, obviously, Anthony, he's from Colorado. I'm from North Carolina, Wilmington, North Carolina. So I bleed the blue. Duke, Carolina State, Wake Forest, the whole bit, even the Pirates, all these teams. So, but with Carolina, I feel for Hubert Davis. I think it's hard to follow in the footsteps of a Dean Smith and a
Yeah,
Roy
yeah,
Williams. That's a lot to live up to. And like Anthony mentioned, and we've talked about this, when you get into the portals and everything changes every year now, almost sometimes mid-season, some guys just not wanting to be there, that type of thing. I want to transfer out, blah blah blah. So you're getting a lot of turmoil sometimes within programs. But for Carolina, this is a team, unfortunately, as you and I talked about off camera, but going into this first game, they'll play basically a playing game. You're talking about a team that's 1-12 in quad one games. 1-12. That shouldn't even be. They should not even be in this position. And I'm going to tell you right now, the only reason they're in that position is because UAB blew their chance. They had to beat Memphis. They didn't. If UAB had won that game, Carolina was out. Carolina might have been looking at a 32 with the other, with what they do with the NIT, but they wouldn't even be here. And even with that, even with UAB losing, I don't think Carolina deserves this. Not when you're 1-12 in quad one games. That's pretty bad. And Carolina doesn't show the consistency. You're talking about a team, that was high projection number one last year. We saw what happened last year with them. Granted, Davis took them to the championship game a couple of years ago, but that's the past. This is now. And if they get by the first round game, the buy-in game, the play-in game, I should say, I hope they do, but I really don't. But I don't see them advancing past that.
yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm
I
with you
just
on that.
don't.
I've not been a fan of them at all this year. You did throw out the numbers for that. I totally agree that it just doesn't look good for them. They probably, and I told you before, I said I don't think they deserve to be in this tournament. Now they
They
got.
don't.
Now here's the thing though, when you see a team like them as an 11 seed, you always have to be scared for that. I don't care who it is, but it's an ACC team, right? I talked to you about this, and I brought this up, and it's crazy because I'm looking at this tournament, I'm looking at this bracket, I'm looking at all these teams, and we talk about 14 SEC teams. I believe I told you and my dad this last night. I said, is this college football or is this the college basketball tournament?
Yeah.
Right? It's you're seeing Big 12. You're seeing a lot of Big 10. You be seeing the all nothing but SEC. You don't see the
Sec Big Ten.
ACC. ACC is really down and
Mm,
stuff. Usually this is bombarded with ACC teams, right?
yeah.
It's not. That's not what this is this year. It's a whole different turn,
Nope.
which makes this tournament a little bit more exciting, right? That's the fun part. But it doesn't matter if it's a North Carolina, if it's a Duke, if it's whoever it may be in that ACC. It could be Miami, whatever. They get themselves in a tournament. Always watch out for them. That's all I have to say. These teams can always be good, and I'm not saying that just because I'm a fan. Like I said, if it's Duke, if it's another ACC team, they get in and find a way in. They can make a push. And recently, we've had number 11 seeds make their way, right? And North
Oh yeah.
Carolina State just won it. Last year, the year before, whatever, right? As an 11 seed, we've seen
Yeah.
11 seeds push. We've seen bigger seeds push. So it's big, obviously. So that's kind of where I want to start there. I think they can beat San Diego State. Obviously, we're not going to make any picks here tonight, guys, because we still haven't really. We're still kind of getting into this bracket here. We're kind of going through it still. We haven't made our picks. We will get into our picks though. And then next weekend, next Saturday, when we get on for our regularly scheduled one, we can go over what we have already. Kind of go over some of the tournaments because it's going to start this week. Um, but then we can kind of go
Well,
over what we're
real
thinking.
quick, but I mean, also another team looking at the playing games is obviously Texas. This is another program that really on the
Xavier,
back end throughout the
Xavier
season.
shouldn't have been
Yeah,
in. I think, right? Isn't my dad said he didn't think he had him in at himself.
yeah, Texas really shouldn't. They've had a tough season too, and they really struggled on the back end. So it was a little bit suspect that they were even going to get that call, so to speak. So you got two programs, obviously, like we just talked about with North Carolina, but Texas is also one of those teams that even if they get past that playing game, folks, Longhorn fans, Carolina fans,
Well,
I wouldn't expect
even if
much past
you
that.
look at all four of those 11s, right? Those are
Yeah.
actually teams that are normally in. They all are.
Oh no,
Xavier's another one.
exactly.
Xavier's been as high as a 3 seed before in this tournament. San Diego State's been a 6 seed running with Kawhi before. These are all teams that have actually done stuff, have won championships, that have been there, have made Final Fours and things like that. So it's hard to see not just North Carolina, Tom, but yes, you're correct. Correct. There's other teams that these other three teams can be just as good. And I think that Texas Xavier game, because both those teams, I don't know
And I love
who
Xavier.
I think it's going to
Always
be a
have.
good. I think that's going to be a really
Yeah.
good game.
But the flip side to all that, we can sit here and say, North Carolina doesn't belong. Texas has struggled, blah, blah,
I
blah, like Budget's
I think
missing. All these games with 8 teams playing to get in or advance to the first round, basically. That's the beauty of the tournament, is everybody who follows this knows there are no guarantees. Everything is game to game. Team gets hot, other team struggles, team hitting from the outside, and the other team's not. Hey, it never ever fails. There's a team or teams that find a way to get a couple of wins. And sometimes the big ones don't make it. The final four, the number ones don't always make it, as we talked about at the start of this cast. So anything can happen. Let's see what happens with these 8 teams that are playing in the very first playing games.
definitely for sure, for sure. So let's kind of get into this here a little bit. Like I said, we're gonna start off from that South bracket. Obviously, starting off, Auburn is gonna play obviously the winner of the St. Francis Alabama State game. All I can say for
Yeah.
whoever wins that game is help me, right?
Help me! Help
Right?
me!
Yeah,
It's gonna be one of those things where it's gonna be it, you,
those
good
are the
getting
kind
past
of
the
games.
first four, but let's just go ahead and call it what it is. I don't see, and I'm gonna be honest, guys. I haven't watched as much college basketball as I usually do. But what I do know about these number ones is I know recently we have seen one go down. We've seen the twos, and I don't see that happening this year
No.
with these guys. I think these guys will all take care of business early. I don't think the 16s, you know, maybe a Norfolk State, but that's still asking a lot going against Florida. How much we just talked about how good they are. I don't see that happening this year. So I think the 16s are going to have a little bit of a rough year this year. But by all means, if they can beat them, great. Because you and I both know we're all about I mean, we could go and we would be fine with seeing 4 16s in a Final Four, right? If we wanted
Oh
to,
yeah,
right?
I'd love that just for the excitement of it all.
although we'd be the only ones watching it, but in the end, we wouldn't mind it. But yeah, I don't see this being an issue for Auburn, no matter who it is, whether it be Alabama State or St. Francis. I don't see this being an issue one bit for either one.
No, and really, when you and like Bud mentioned, folks, a lot of times, yeah, you've gotten the one massive one upset a few years back, and you get the twos that get upset in the threes sometimes in those first games. typically what you're really looking for from these 16s is just it's really a pride thing. I mean, you balled out, you made it to the tournament. That's a great season. You're talking about these schools that really have like 10,000, 8,000 seat home games. So for them, it's just the excitement for their fan base to get to travel to a game, maybe for the first time, but they ultimately know they're not going to win.
Yeah,
But hey, you made the dance. You balled out. You did the best you could. So it's about the experience. It's
definitely.
not necessarily going in and thinking, "Oh man, we really can't do it." No, even they know. But yeah, it's about being there. It's like we talked about with Hoosiers last week. It's the little engine that could. At least you get there, and it takes a lot just to get invited. You're talking about basically the actual 64 teams that comprise the tournament, and obviously the play-ins. But that's it. But to get there is the accomplishment.
Yeah,
And just ball out and play. Whether you lose by 30 or you ball out and you lose by 3-1, okay, but you got there. That's the beauty of this thing. It's 2 weeks. It's the best two sporting weeks of the year.
it's the one shining moment.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Yeah, we're not gonna sing it, folks. We're not gonna sing it. Promise.
We're not? I thought we were. I thought that was the next cue. I had that next for where I was gonna start playing in the background, let it fade in right now, and we were gonna hit the notes. All right.
Now, I will say this though. I will say this real quick. Going back to that bracket we're talking about with Auburn,
Yeah. Well, here
Michigan's on.
I was gonna bring that up. Yeah, you're talking about Michigan State.
Yeah, Michigan is there. Michigan is a threat,
Oh,
especially with
Michigan.
Auburn struggling on the backside. So this is why I can't realize we talked about. Bud asked me about the teams I felt confident about. You're talking about again Auburn, a team losing 3 or 4 going into the tournament. No teams advanced to the chip and won it with that type of record going in. So that's going to be tough for them. Michigan's a good ball club, and there's another team from a conference in this bracket, and that's Yale. And I'm telling you right now, folks, the Ivy League proved this last year. They proved this last year. You cannot lay down on the Ivy League. They will sneak up on you. They will drop threes. They will defend you.
That's
They will hound
exactly
you,
what I was gonna
and they
bring
will
up.
find a way to
Texas
win a game. So
A&M
you
Yale
better
game. Yep.
you better pay attention to Yale in this bracket.
Yeah, that's the one team I was gonna kind of bring up is one of those that could be a little bit of a sleeper, maybe one of those upset picks for people is Yale, maybe getting that upset over Texas. But see,
And I love the Ivy
that's a
League.
tough draw for Yale though, huh? That is a really tough draw for them.
It's going to be tough, but I don't put anything past them. I really don't. I like Texas A&M a lot, and they could potentially they could set up a big game down the line as the tournament advances. So I'm big on Texas A&M. Again, another SEC school, but don't lay down on the Ivy League. Don't ever do that. They will come back to burn you.
So that means Michigan's got to come here to Denver, right? Because Denver gets to host a little bit here. I believe Michigan comes to Denver, huh?
Yeah, you should be. I think obviously, I know you and your dad are going to try to go and check out the shoot arounds the day before the games begin. They had it here last year in Memphis. We had some teams. I think it was Houston, Iowa State were two of the participants. It's a big deal. I mean, you get the fans coming in from around the country, and you get that feel of the tournament and stuff like that. Even if you don't get to go to the games, you
So you
can
have,
watch the shoot arounds
yeah.
and
So you
stuff.
have that. That's not too bad. But looking at this bracket though, I, I can see Texas A&M making it out. As far
Yeah.
as not going just straight Auburn, Michigan State here, I think I definitely think Texas A&M is a team that can do it. I also believe I don't. I'm not too confident in Iowa State. I don't know a whole lot about them, but I also don't always feel too confident when it comes to the tournament with them. Um, but if I had to pick somebody just out of there, I would say Texas A&M. Other than just going one or two, that would be my team out
Yeah.
of this bracket that would maybe make a push here for that.
Yeah, and I still think Louisville. They're 27-7. That's a pretty good ball
That's a
club.
tough one too.
Uh,
Those two play each other. That's a really tough one.
Yeah, so like I said, there's a little bit of competition there for Auburn. Obviously, if they once they get past that first game, because I don't have the best feeling about these guys. I could see Auburn potentially as it plays out. They could lose in the 16, definitely the 8.
So
So
they
we'll see
might
what they
beat up
do.
Texas A&M in that Sweet 16. We might have a hell of a game
So
in
they
that
may,
one.
yeah,
Might have a hell of a
yeah.
game
So it's an interesting bracket. They're one of the ones that are going to face some challenges to try to get
for sure.
further down the line as far as the ones
Well,
go.
let's move over now to the east side of the bracket. That's obviously led by Duke there. Two on this is Alabama. This is a pretty strong bracket here. Kind of looking at what we have here. Bama being a two for Duke is going to be tough for them, but also you got team um, Let's see. We got Arizona in here also. BYU's in this bracket. Wisconsin also in this bracket. This is a tough bracket, Mike. What do you see here? Is there any teams that look a little surprising for you?
Well, if you're looking at the first round, going into the second rounds, I mean, Duke for me literally walks through this because, I mean, obviously they're getting
Oh,
through
you
the
think
first
they
round.
walk through
Flag
it?
is the biggest issue. Well, because if you're looking at how it brackets out, but Duke's going to play either American or Mount St. Mary's, so they're going
Nice.
to walk through
Well, yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah.
Wouldn't even have to wouldn't even have to play Flag in this game if you don't want to. So if you want to rest the ankle, you rest him. You let Duke just go ahead and cruise and win by 30 or 25 or whatever they're going to do. If they advance past that, they're going to play potentially Mississippi State or Baylor. I don't really see a whole lot there. I really don't. And if they advance past that, you're looking at like Liberty, Arizona, that type of thing. So from what I've seen, I think Liberty actually would have a chance potentially to upset Oregon in the first round. We'll kind of see how that plays out. But aside from that, if Flag comes back, he's 85%, 90%, and really that's all you really need, I think, in the first few games. Because Duke is deep. Duke is a deep basketball team.
Oh yeah,
Um,
definitely. That's why I said
I
they're
mean,
like.
they are
I
massive
think they
deep.
are. I had them running through this, but the thing is yeah,
Yeah,
they're deep. But like I said, without Cooper, they're a different team. They don't play the same way,
they're
even though they're deep. I felt like they shouldn't. There should have been a reason they shouldn't have run through the ACC tournament. Even meeting up with North Carolina, I get it's a rival. You play them tough because that is your rival. North Carolina is trying to get in to the tournament. I get all of that, but you're way better than North Carolina this year. We just talked about how bad they were. They didn't deserve to be in this tournament. There's no reason you lose by just 3 to them. And like I said, I get the whole rivalry thing. I get that whole portion of it. You're gonna play a little bit better. You're gonna play stronger against these
yeah.
teams. I get that part. But still, you're the better team. You're a number one seed. They're part of the first 4 in. You, no, I'm sorry. I'm not gonna give them a pass for that. I don't see them being able to because I think Arizona is really good. Caleb Love, since he's moved there, transferring over there, has been on fire compared to when he was with North Carolina. He's got that team running on all cylinders. Bama's actually played really, really well this year too. And BYU
Oh
is
no,
one of those
no.
other teams that you never can sleep on. So I don't I wouldn't want to say they can walk through it, but at the same time they could, right? Cooper gets healthy, he's completely healthy. There is a chance that they could run through this, but I still feel like teams like Arizona and Bama could still kind of, put a little fork in the road for them too.
Yeah, and when I say walk, but I'm talking about when I say walk, I don't mean through the entire thing, obviously, because your point's very valid. As you get to the 16 and stuff like that, it becomes much more difficult. It really does. But Duke in the first 2 rounds, really, even if, and I get it with Cooper, but Flag is basically your player of the year in the ACC. He's one of the best players in the country. Don't know if he'll be back next year. I mean, so he may be looking to maximize this experience for all it is before he decides what he's going to do with the pros. Hopefully, he comes back at least for one more year. But through the first 2 rounds, Duke should absolutely coast through this. But now, when you do get to the Arizonas and that type of thing, but possibly Alabama, it will become tougher. When I say you walk through, I guess I got to clarify. I'm talking about the first 2 rounds because it should become progressively more difficult. I don't care what your seeding is. Alabama is a good ball club. I mean, let's get real here. I mean, they're a big, big, good ball club. They're a top 10 ball club. They're part of the SEC. So that will be difficult. But I think as the tournament progresses, Duke's got a lot of time together. I think that's gonna play in their favor as the season progresses or as the tournament progresses. So we'll see how that plays out. But through this initial bracket,
I
Duke should have
agree.
no problems getting
I
out of
agree.
that.
They should definitely
Yeah,
get
no
through
problems
one
getting
and
through that.
two. Definitely, they shouldn't have any
Yeah,
issues.
exactly,
I agree with you
exactly.
on that for sure. They shouldn't. But
Yeah,
and
and
like
that's what I'm all looking at right now, folks.
you
Is just
know,
that first
and
bracket.
so far looking at this bracket for me, and it might go further because there is another team we'll talk about that could. I'm kind of I'm kind of digging the fours so far. I like Texas A&M and I like Arizona at the four. I'm kind of digging the fours right now a little bit. So we'll keep going from here and see. But I like this bracket. Like I said, Arizona might be another one of those sleepers for me if I'm looking at this bracket again out of the ones and not being ones and twos. Maybe Wisconsin, but I would actually take Arizona still over Wisconsin myself. So that would be for me on this one. Those would be kind of
Yeah, and also again back to Liberty. This is that 12-5 matchup with the Oregon folks, and we all know the history of the 12-5, and where you that's where you find a lot of your first round upsets. There's one on the flip side we'll talk about here in a little bit that ironically involves Colorado and Tennessee, so that's kind of interesting.
yeah.
But this is one of those games with Liberty and Oregon where I really do feel like Liberty might be able to sneak up on these guys and get that first win, that 12-5
Yeah.
upset. We'll see how it plays out.
All right. Well, let's move down from the East into the Midwest now, where Houston is the number one seed in that, Tennessee being the two seed. A little bit different with this one too. Gonzaga being an 8 seed in this one. They've usually been the top two seeds the past decade. It seems like they're just never not
Yeah,
good, but I got to give credit to them with their coaching. Mark Few is a very, very good coach.
yeah.
I really like him. They've always had really good players too. But this is also another bracket that kind of intrigues me too. There's a lot of good teams. Gonzaga's a team that can because they're well coached. Clemson is a team that beat Duke this year. That's their one loss in the
Yeah.
ACC this year, so that's huge for them too. Tennessee's a good two seed. UCLA is another one of those teams that could be Kentucky, obviously too. A lot of stuff here, Mike. Let's get your let's see what let's kind of digest this one here. What do you like? What don't you like?
I really do like Houston. I really do like Tennessee. Obviously we saw what
Which
they
is
did in their
weird to
respective
hear from
tournaments.
Mike that he likes Houston.
Yeah. Now, and to that point, folks, again, with Houston, I haven't been a fan of theirs. I thought the conference that they played in prior to last season, it didn't favor them. You don't play competition that's good enough to allow you to compete when it comes to tournament time, and that proved itself out with Houston. Much like with a few other teams that don't play in very difficult conferences. I think Gonzaga sometimes has experienced that problem, even though they would advance fairly far. But this Houston team is probably the best I've seen in the last 4 or 5 seasons. This is a team built to reach the Final Four, built to potentially win the championship. I was very impressed with what they did in their tournament, and I was very curious to see what they were going to do on the back end of their season because they had a rematch with Texas Tech. They went down to Texas Tech, or was it Tech? Yeah, they went into Texas Tech for the second game. They had already lost to Tech at home early in the season. So the Texas Tech game was big for me. If Houston had gone into that game, lost by 5, lost by 4, I would have said, well, I'll tell you what, this is exactly what I'm talking about. But Houston showed a gritty performance. They won. That convinced me right there, if nothing else, because Tech's a good ball club, and they can make some noise in this tournament too. But that really spoke to me a lot about Houston. They're a balanced team. I won't say they're deep 1 to 12, but they're good enough and deep enough to make a serious push. This is a real threat right here with Houston and Tennessee. Really, anything else coming out of that? Purdue is there, obviously. Clemson, as you mentioned, Bud. Gonzaga, again, they're not the Gonzaga that we're used to. They're coming in as an 8. I think that's a pretty good placement. They're going to have a first round matchup, obviously, with Georgia. It's an 8-9, as we know. Would not entirely surprise me, Georgia being a SEC team, if they sort of scoot past Gonzaga and Gonzaga experiences the first round knockout, which really doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, I can see that
But
too.
right
Because I
now, it
can
looks
see
like
being
Tennessee.
an SEC team, like you said, I think Georgia can beat Gonzaga in this one. I mean, they're playing a
Yeah.
lot more tougher competition. Being in the
Yep.
SEC, like we talked about again, 14 teams made this. 14 teams, guys, from the SEC made it
14.
to this tournament, and you don't see that a lot from the SEC. SEC is usually pretty down for basketball teams, right? It's usually
That's
that's
almost a,
football.
that's almost
So
a quarter of the tournament.
yeah, exactly. That's
Almost a
insane.
quarter of the entire tournament is big. I mean, is SEC.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, that's
And like I
ridiculous.
said, and then you got a team in here like Clemson who has beaten Duke. We just talked about Duke.
Yeah.
They're only lost in the ACC this year. They got McNeese. McNeese has always shown that they could play in the tournament too. They're part of that. This is the part that's weird, right? Clemson could be one of those teams that could be really good. Like I said, we beat Duke, but on top of that, they're in that 5-12. And we all know that those 5-12s are always hard to pick, right? We don't know
Yep.
whether it's going to be good or bad. Usually the 12s, most of the time, usually come out on top in that. Could that happen here? I can definitely see it. I can for sure see McNeese beating Clemson, but at the same time, I can also see Clemson taking care of business and Clemson maybe being a sleeper through this a little bit too. Um,
I kind of thought that too, but
so I mean, it's still up in the air. I'm not too sure. Looking at this bracket myself, I mean, Kentucky is always a good team too. Kentucky can always make that kind of a push if they need to. But I think you're dead on with this one about Houston. I think Houston will end up coming out of this bracket looking at it myself.
Yeah, I really can't see anything other than Houston coming out of this. I think it will be Houston, Tennessee coming out of that region, and eventually, and that can make for a really good ball game. And I'm not at this moment convinced that if both teams are healthy, and that's always a big thing with me, folks. You know this. I don't care what the sport is, Bud and I talked about this. He's on the same platform with me that if you're going to win, if you're going to win chips, you got to be healthy. That's a big part of it. But I really see this being Tennessee and Houston in a matchup that could be really interesting to watch if it does reach that point. I think there's a good chance we're going to see that.
Definitely, definitely. Well, then let's move over now to the West portion of the bracket here, led by Florida. We already talked about. Now, Mike, this has one of those teams that you've talked a lot about that you like. St. John's is that number 2 seed. Why don't you let us know a little bit how you've been feeling about them?
I'll tell you what. I'm going to start with the obvious. It's not just the team itself. Let's look at the coach, Rick Pitino. This is the sixth different team. This is a record. The sixth different team that this man has taken to the tournament. So that's a record. Patino's his speech was now when he left Louisville, I was kind of down on the guy. A lot of the background with what was going on with recruiting and things like that. So I realized I lost a lot of respect for him. So I really wasn't crazy about him being allowed to come back. But if I put that aside and I'm looking at just the coaching aspect of what the man can do, the pedigree is there. He's a Hall of Fame coach. You're taking your 16 different team to the tournament, and I have been big. This is the number one defensive team in the country, and this is a good ball club. I mean, they put a beat down on Creighton. That was supposed to be. They were only a 6.5 point favorite. They won by I think it was 16 points in that game. So that says a lot about what St. John's has to offer.
I
And
agree.
this, for me, is a sleeper team. And you
And
better watch St. John's, folks, because this is a team that's ready to ball
and you're
out.
talking
And you
about
better
Rick
bring the game.
Pitino,
You're going to beat
and you're
these
talking about
guys.
Rick
This could be a
Pitino
Final Four team.
winning, which he can also see a second round matchup against Bill Self. We could see a Pitino Self matchup in the second round, and that's crazy to think
Kansas
too.
is Kansas.
Uh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And
Don't sell them short. Like you're saying, Kansas short.
yeah, no, for sure. That Kansas is one of those too. They're a 7 seed. You're not used to seeing Kansas low, right? There's a
Yep.
turn of things going on here. You're seeing teams though that used to be at the top at one point. And one team that I'm going to mention is Maryland. Maryland was a team at one point in time that used to be up there in the top four all the time, maybe even make a 1 seed, 2 seed. They had fallen a little bit, right? Now they're kind of back on the high horse. I told you guys I like these fours this year. I wasn't a huge fan of Purdue. I think Purdue's fallen off, obviously losing ED, things like that. They're still great. They're a 4 seed for a reason, right? But out of the four seeds, Purdue would be my least favorite out of them all. I don't see them making a run. But
Yeah.
Maryland, I like Maryland. I like Texas A&M. I like the fours this year. But I like this bracket a lot too. Grand Canyon plays
And
Maryland.
Tech is there.
See, and that's the thing. Texas Tech is, but I was gonna bring up Grand Canyon who plays Maryland. I don't like to see these two match up because I like Grand Canyon. My dad's turned me on to this Grand Canyon team all of a sudden, and they've been really, really good when they come to the tournament. So that really makes it tough. But not only do I like it, I like Tech too. I like the fact that we could see a Patino South matchup in the second round. But
And Missouri's in this bracket.
not only that, Mike, we get to see CSU made it this year. Great, right? And they're a 12 seed. So there's a chance we could see that other 5-12 matchup. Mike, you haven't been a fan of Memphis recently. That's where you're at right now, right? That's your spot. You're not a big fan of them. You haven't been a big fan of Penny. I know that for sure. Where I have been a little bit more on the Penny side, saying he's kind of made the team good. I thought, for me, I think every time somebody talks about Memphis, I think they always go back to the D Rose day, and they think that that's what Memphis is. They're a championship team that's supposed to be. You had D Rose though. You know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
what they're doing right now, I think Penny's doing okay. Like I don't see him obviously getting a national championship. Maybe it's too hard now, especially nowadays with the portal. For him to get a chance, he's gonna have to move up in the ring. He's got to get a better job. He's gonna have to move up. Maybe the SEC is gonna look for some coaches. Which maybe not because they got 14 teams in. I don't think anybody's looking for a coach in there. But if he can get into an SEC, a Big 12 school, maybe he can make that push for something like that. But being in Memphis, I think he's just comfortable there. Is more what I could say. I know
What's
you
his
haven't been a huge,
hometown?
but I think he's just comfortable. And maybe that is your problem. Maybe you want him to be more assertive. And you don't want him to just be comfortable with just being a five seed. But five's pretty good for a tournament.
Oh yeah, I say what I say about Memphis, but I will say this. Again, they come from a mediocre conference, folks, and that's part of their downfall. Um, but here's the other thing, and they struggled to get past Tulane. I mean, it was all they could do to get past UAB. They did it, and credit to them. But they play in a small conference, really. If you look on the across, the landscape of college basketball. But Penny has been able to get this team consistently to the tournament. Second round knockout, third round knockout, sometimes a first round knockout. So to Bud's point, they're not going to win a championship. But this is probably the best team that Penny has brought to the tournament. But part of Memphis's problem is, Penny also coached at East High School in Memphis. And so that's where this all began. I mean, this is the hometown kid. I think with Memphis, there's a little bit of a bias there. It's the hometown hero. Let's let him continue to coach. I'm not saying he's a bad coach, and maybe like Bud says, at some point you change the scenery. But there, more power to him. But I literally feel as we're talking about Memphis right now, as Bud mentioned with Colorado State, Colorado State had to win the tournament. They had to win their tournament to get into the tournament. And credit to them for doing that. But they're one of the hottest teams in the country right now. And I think that heavily favors them. We talked about the 12-5 matchups we did with the one side. Now we got this side. This is a 12-5, and I really think CSU could win this game. As a matter of fact, Bud and I said we're not going to pick games right now, but what I will say is I think CSU has a really strong chance to come out of this game with the upset. So Memphis better be on their A game because I think Colorado State's going to be ready to play.
Oh yeah,
But this could be a good ball game. But
definitely.
there's so much coming out of that little bracket down there. So what comes out of that, I think, is going to be heavily challenged, battle tested as the tournament progresses. That's a pretty good bracket down there.
Yeah, there is, and I like a lot of those 12 seeds. Like you said, I could see CSU winning that first game. Obviously, it's going to be rough for them. That next game that they're going to have to play probably Maryland or Grand Canyon. I think if they do draw Grand Canyon, there could be some Sweet 16 in there, for them. If they get Maryland, I don't see that happening. But even looking at like a UC San Diego, I think UC San Diego can be one of those teams. I believe that could make a little bit
Yep.
of a push. But you did, like you said, they play Michigan. That's tough too. That's a really tough one. But even a team like what was the other like VCU playing BYU, I like BYU. But see, here's the thing: the teams that I thought could make a push before the bracket came out, they got some tough draws though. Like you said, like UC San Diego, Michigan first, VCU having to play BYU first. It takes away from that, but and I'm hoping like even a Grand Canyon now playing Maryland. I wouldn't mind if Maryland did lose that game to Grand Canyon. I'd still be okay with it, but I really am
Yeah.
pushing for possibly Maryland to do good. But I think this
And
bracket
that's,
is
that's
actually pretty good though. I think it's
Yeah,
really
it's a
good.
good, but it might be the best opening round bracket. Um, but also, and again, Maryland's a good basketball team. Anthony talked about, not as many ACC teams this year. And obviously, Carolina has the play-in game, so I don't technically say they're there, but in some respects, this is the beginning of the tournament because you're playing in to get to the next step. So I will, for me personally, I'll consider these first four games part of the tournament. So you got Carolina, you got Duke, you got Clemson, you got Maryland, those type of things. But Maryland's a good basketball team, and I really think they have the potential to go a little bit further than some people might think they have the
Yeah,
capabilities of. So watch. This is a good
I
bracket to
agree.
watch,
And
but
here's another thing: I totally spaced it out because I totally forgot. Like I said, I haven't kept up with college basketball as much. But I was talking about that Bill South, but but also if Arkansas wins that, Calipari's there. That could also be a Patino Calipari matchup too. So either way, they win that game. If St. John's goes on win, which they should, I think they will. They are going to play either South or Calipari, depending on what happens on that. So shout out to my dad because he did give us that information because I
yeah,
totally forgot
and
about that. But there's a lot of stuff that's going on this year, and like we said, craziest thing is that how great, like you said, the bracket looks. I think it's not one sided anywhere. I don't really see that there's really an issue or anything like that there. Where like you kind of put out, not but like a cakewalk through the whole tournament. I don't see that this year happening at all. So I'm hoping we have a really really fun and exciting tournament. Um, who do you think though, Mike? If you outside of 10, who's your biggest sleeper so far that you
Oh, I
can
love
think of?
St. John's. I absolutely love St. John's.
No.
Uh,
I mean, outside of the top, like the top 10 seed, like so, like a 10 seed or lower, who would be your
oh
sleeper?
wow, bud.
10 seed or
Um,
lower as a sleeper.
to go how far? You mean just to advance a
Like
couple
I
of
would say,
games?
like sleeper anywhere that makes like an elite 8 to a Sweet 16 type, maybe gets kind of ruffles some feathers. So yeah, Sweet 16 to elite 8.
Let me look at this for just a second. If I had to look just off the top of my head and going back over these real quick, if I had to pick one, boy, I'll tell you what, bud, nothing really, to tell you the truth, jumps out at me. Let me give this one more quick look. Man, that is tough.
Yeah.
Let me see here.
See,
Now, yeah, let me. Would they do it? No. I'll tell you one that might. This, and I'm not talking about win it, folks. I'm talking about maybe win a game or two. New Mexico State, I think, or New Mexico, I should
New
say.
Mexico. See,
And granted, they
that's
played Michigan
exactly where
State
I
the
was
first game.
going
They
with
played
that.
Michigan State the first game. Um,
I was going with New
I don't
Mexico
know.
too.
This is the interesting thing. I really thought going into
Yeah.
the Big Ten tournament, I really thought Michigan State, if they balled out, they could grab one of the one seeds, but obviously that didn't happen. That's how good I felt about Izzo and his team. I thought they really had that potential. It didn't work out. I wouldn't sleep on New Mexico. Now, again,
Yeah.
folks, not to
Yeah.
win it all, not to get to the Final Four, but maybe 32, 16, something like that. Watch New Mexico.
I agree. I'm with you on New Mexico. That was one of the teams that I kind of had to be in there. I also could see, obviously, possibly, if it works out that way, Colorado State being one of those teams, right?
There you
Because, like
go,
I
bud.
said, because Grand Canyon, like I said, if Grand Canyon pulls that off, right, and they win, I think they have a good chance of winning Canyon. So if I'm saying Sweet 16 to Elite 8, yes, definitely. Like we talked about Florida strong, I don't think Colorado State meets them in the Sweet 16. They could beat them. But at the same time, the Sweet 16 is great for them. That would be terrific if they, and there's a
Oh,
chance
you
that
kidding?
could
That'd be
happen for them.
phenomenal.
Um, let me see who else on here that I could, maybe a Utah State possibly
I
could
don't know.
make a
I
run,
didn't like
but
the
I
way they
don't
put
like
it
the
on the
fact that
back
they have
end.
to play Tennessee. Um,
Yeah,
but
and I'm
I
looking across
guess
the board here
I
again
guess
too.
also too. I mean, it could happen because, and this
Now,
goes back to coaching. But if Arkansas could possibly be one of those teams that could go
one
push
team,
too.
yeah, and I agree with that. But one other team I'll throw out there, and this is more like just a history behind them, is Xavier. This is a team that typically comes into the tournament, and they're not always the best, they're not always the greatest, obviously. But this is a team that can and has gotten one or two wins in a tournament, sometimes three if everything breaks right. I would never sleep on Xavier. I think their program is solid. The coaching is solid. The history is solid with these guys. So that's another team coming up. What were they? 11 seed, I think it
11. Yeah,
was.
they're right in the
Yeah.
first four. But well, now
Yeah,
here's another
exactly.
question then, Mike. I mean, we talked about it and we didn't think they were going to be in, but now when you look at the bracket and where they're set up, why couldn't UNC be one of those teams then? So they have if they
I
they,
don't
they
know,
beat
but
they
something
beat San
doesn't
Diego
feel right with
State, they're
Carolina.
gonna play Ole Miss first. I don't see why
Yeah,
they
no,
can't beat Ole Miss for one. I think they could be a good
exactly.
win. So then next, you're probably looking more at Iowa State, right? I've never been a huge fan of Iowa State in the tournament. I think they have a chance
Yeah,
to beat Iowa State. I think Iowa State always finds a way to choke when it comes to the tournament sometimes, especially when they're a higher
yeah,
seed. When they're three,
yeah,
4 or above, they don't play as well as they normally do. Well, they got to be like a 6 seed or a 7 seed to kind of make a push or something. I could see them winning that, right? So that puts them in Sweet 16. Which at the Sweet 16, we were talking about New Mexico, we're talking about Michigan State. If New Mexico does find a way to move past and beat Michigan State, which is tough too. On top of that, because once we said again, they got Izzo. We've always been about coaching, right? I think coaching goes a long way in the tournament, a huge way. I don't think people realize how big coaching is when it comes to the tournament. So New Mexico finds a way. They meet up with North Carolina Sweet 16. What's to say North Carolina can't even beat New Mexico to get to the Elite Eight? And then you might have an Elite Eight matchup of UNC and Auburn. I mean, that's crazy to think. North
You know what's
Carolina is not a
interesting?
terrible team. It's just they had
No,
a
no, not at
terrible
all. But
year.
it's
They have a terrible
things just
year.
don't seem
They don't. It's not panning
things
out.
just don't seem right with Carolina. I
But they
mean,
have
you know,
been playing great towards the end. They were
yeah, on the back
destroying
end,
teams.
yeah.
Like they were losing to you threw out the record, but they were just losing these games. But now they've been destroying teams coming through to make their way through. So the best time to catch fire is at the end here. So with
Oh
the
yeah,
way
of
that their
course.
bracket is set up, looking at this right now, why couldn't they make at least the Sweet 16?
I still don't feel 16, but I hope you're right, you know, because again, I believe Carolina, but I'm trying to you know, not look through the rose-colored glass and all those things. But to your point, there really isn't anything that says that they couldn't, but something doesn't feel right with this
Well,
program.
if we look
The last 2 years, even it
if we
doesn't
look
feel
at
right.
it though, right? Okay, they probably have. Let's see here, the best.
How do you go
But they
12
probably
against
have
quad
the
one
best.
teams?
They probably have the easiest road though, because think about it, right? You just talked about Xavier Tech. The winner of that has to play Illinois.
But I fall back on again. You know, we're
So
talking about a team that won 1-12 against quad one teams, and that is not good. You know, and that doesn't
would
bode
you
well
rather
for
play
Carolina.
Illinois or Ole Miss though first? Personally, I'd
I
rather
almost
play
think
Ole
they're
Miss.
almost kind of interchangeable.
I'd rather play Ole Miss.
What's
I'd
that?
rather play Ole Miss first. I don't know if I want to mess with Illinois.
Probably, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Yes, I
So
would.
think about this: Xavier, Texas, they win that. Their next matchup is more likely going to be Kentucky. That's a tough
Not
matchup for
that would be
them.
interesting.
So
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
that's
All right,
definitely.
would you rather play Kentucky in the second round? Or would you rather play Iowa State? I want to play Iowa State in the next round.
Oh yeah, definitely. I agree with you on that
You know what I mean? And
completely.
then
I completely.
after that, you're probably going to run into Tennessee, which then they're going to run into
Oh,
Michigan
well, I
State.
tell you what, that's a whole different animal
So
there.
that's what I'm saying. So I think Texas and Xavier, the winner of that, they have a tougher road as the 11th seed than what North Carolina has at that
Yeah.
bottom part of that South bracket.
It is highly possible. Again, like I go back to, you know, 1-12 against quad ones. They've had their struggles. To your point, they did pick it up. They began playing really well in the back end, and I'm talking about Carolina, obviously, folks. But something just doesn't feel right with these guys. But it hasn't for the last 2 years. I hope you're completely right. One thing I did want to mention, I want to go back to Michigan State for a second. Their first round matchup, we talked about obviously. Uh, you know, potential matchup in the second round with New Mexico State if they get past Marquette. There's a team. Michigan State is playing Bryant,
Mm-hmm.
and Grant Bryant is middle school, little school, nothing. But they don't have a starter under 6'6". Not one starter is under 6'6" on this basketball team.
Bruh.
That's kind of unique in itself. Now, is that going to be enough to get them past Michigan State? Probably not. But sometimes, if you're not talking about a one, if you're not talking about a two, these teams can come in with that laid back attitude. You know, it's the first round matchup. We got this. You know, I watched the Tennessee guy in the chip game prior to the game. Tennessee player sitting on the side on the bench, texting before the game. And I disagree with this, but that's for another story. But if you're going to take that type of attitude, and I'm not saying Michigan State will, if these guys are 6'6" or better on their starting five, they're there for a reason. Are they going to beat Michigan State? No. But I wouldn't sit there and beat Michigan State. If I'm Izzo, I'm going to walk in that locker room and say, guys, don't do this. Don't do this. You need to ball out with these guys. Let's get ready for Marquette. Let's get ready for New Mexico. Let's get ready for this. Let's not let these guys sneak up on us. Well, I'm kind of rooting for Bryant. That's the kind of thing we talked about. These schools that aren't going to do anything, let's give them a shout out and hope they get at least a win.
Well, you know what?
And I don't like Michigan State anyway.
I don't like Michigan State. I was upset that Michigan's coming to Colorado already. I'd rather go back. I'm okay with that. No, I'm with you on that for sure. I'm with you. Michigan State should not have any issues with Bryant at all. And if
They really should.
and if
No,
they
they shouldn't.
do, then they got a huge problem regardless of who they play. Whether New Mexico does beat Marquette or Marquette beats New Mexico, you struggle with Bryant, they're gonna have a tough time in that second round. Which once again you then that kind of leaves the door wide open for that bottom half to make that push to the Final Four to the Elite Eight, right? Any of those teams at that point, if Michigan State's out, any of those teams can, those top teams can make it. Ole Miss, Iowa State,
Oh
any of those
yeah,
guys, North Carolina could be San Diego State. Even if San Diego State beats North Carolina, right? They could be that team to
yeah,
make a push too at the same time. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think Michigan State, obviously, once again, for me, it always comes back to coaching. I mean, we've watched enough
yeah. And I was gonna
sports,
say,
we've
but
watched a lot of it, and especially when you watch a lot of tournament time, coaching is a it's a huge deal. It's huge. You got to be able to
and
how to manage your players, manage your timeouts. Don't get too flustered when your team looks like they're ready to fall. Take the right timeout, get them back in order. Make the right adjustments at halftime. You have to do that against some of these teams because, especially, I feel like it's more the upsets, right? When these teams start getting that momentum, the 15 seeds, and they're up at halftime, if you're a good coach, you can turn them around and say, guys, okay, it was a rough start. You got the butterflies are out now. Let's go back to playing our ball. And then they come back out and win by 20, right? But then there's some coaches and some teams that just can't get over there. It's just, we're losing. Game's over. You try to come back out. You make a little bit of a push at the beginning, but then they just hang around. And that's the problem with some of these teams. You cannot, when it's the tournament like that, you cannot let teams hang around. That is the
oh
biggest
no,
thing
you
in the
can't.
world you cannot do is let teams hang around. I don't care who they are. From a 1 seed to a 16 seed, when it's tournament time, you do not let a team hang around because you let them hang around long enough. We've seen prayers thrown up that have landed. We've seen, you know, weird plays. We've seen, all kinds of different stuff, right? That anybody can win a game, and then all it is just to give a team momentum. That's all you just need some sort of momentum, right? And you can make a push in this tournament. So, um, I don't think they should have any problems with it, but at the same time, I'm looking at this bracket here, and I'm trying to think if I had to pick a team like a one or a two, maybe even a three, to go down, who I'm picking, and it's it's too hard this year, Mike. I can't see a one, two, or three going down. Now, that's not to say it's not gonna happen, as I automatically think that it could. But maybe if I had to pick somebody because I'm not high on them, maybe Lipscomb beating Iowa State. Maybe that's my biggest one.
Yeah,
But looking at everybody
yeah,
else, Wisconsin I think should take care of Montana. Kentucky should take care of Troy. We got
yeah. I remember when
Texas Tech
Grizzlies.
should take out UNC. And so Iowa State's probably my big one as far as that. The twos we're big on. You know, with the way that they're matched up, they should be fine. And we already said earlier, there's no ones that we see that are going to be able to that are going to lose to a 16 this year.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, I've got Liberty as a potential, 12 over a five. I've got CSU as a potential 12 over a Memphis five, that type of thing. What else was it? There was something else I was going to bring up that I was looking at just real quick, but I can't remember what it was. Um, but on the whole, oh, that's what I was going to say. But if I go back real quick to a team, a one seed that I think would be the first to fall of the four, I think it's going to be Auburn. I think something's not right there. Uh, so we'll see what happens with that. But I did want to make one more comment, as you did on coaching. It's big. Connecticut. Everybody thought potential, three straight. And yeah, I mean, maybe Connecticut catches fire and they get a run going in this tournament. Maybe Connecticut still can make a push for three. I don't think so. But my point, going back to what you just said, you know, you got the Rizzos at Michigan State. If not for Rizzo, Michigan State's or Izzo, I should say. I'm sorry, folks. Izzo, if he's not there, Michigan State, they're not. They're not. He's right. They're there. He's why they're succeeding. Patino, I'm sorry if he's not at St. John's, they're not in that position. It's that type of thing right now. So coaching is a big, big, big part of what we're seeing here. Hurley with Connecticut, they're not winning the two straight if not for Hurley being there, and that's why he came back in part because he loves the program, he loves the atmosphere, and he turned down the Lakers offer. So coaching is more than half of the equation. Become tournament time. If you don't have the coach for this, players aren't going to get you all the way there on their own. They got to have the coach to go get it done.
I agree. I agree. Well, guys, um, This has actually been fun. I'm glad we were able to get on here and do this selection show with you guys. But we're gonna take a quick break, and I think Mike, if you're good, you want to get into a couple other topics today, or you got anything going on tonight?
Yeah, I'm ready to talk. I'm ready to talk about Trump's budget. I'm ready to talk about NASA and all they're getting ready to do.
All right. So now what's gonna happen, guys,
That's
is I'm
a
gonna
little
go
bit
ahead
above
and
our pay grade.
just leave Mike to himself because I know nothing about any of that stuff. So Mike is gonna go ahead and run the podcast for the remainder of the night on his own. I'll just be here to control it, and I'll let him rant on.
Well, actually, I was gonna go get some ice cream, but okay, I guess I stay around.
All right, folks. Well, we're gonna be back. When we get back, we're gonna get kind of into this kind of talks that have been a little bit in social media, even talks on big networks and stuff. Just the difference between the media, these athletes, podcasts, athletes that are on all this kind of stuff that all ties together. How the athletes are really not enjoying the media as much anymore. But we're gonna kind of get into this conversation a little bit here. But first off, we're gonna take a break, and we'll be right back.
I ran up a check, I might do it again. Enemies close, had me thinking they're friends. 10 toes down, I'll be free until the end. Crib outside the city, I don't feel safe in my hands. Took so many years, I'm just waiting for the wins. I'm in debt to no one but the one who took my sins. I do it for real, there's no reason to pretend. If I do it once, I do it again. Add it up, bankroll, euro, peso, add it up. I'm just doing me, everything is on me. Oh, you matter what? Add it up. I ran up a check, I might do it again. Enemies close, had me thinking they're friends. 10 toes down, I'll be free until the end. Crib outside the city, I don't feel safe in my hands. Took so many years, I'm just waiting for the wins. I'm in debt to no one but the one who took my sins. I do it for real, there's no reason to pretend. If I do it once, I do it again. Add it up, bankroll, euro, peso, add it up. I'm just doing me, everything is on me. Oh, you matter what? Add it up. I ran up a check, I might do it again. Enemies close, had me thinking they're friends. 10 toes down, I'll be free until the end. Crib outside the city, I don't feel safe in my hands. Took so many years, I'm just waiting for the wins. I'm in debt to no one but the one who took my sins. I do it for real, there's no reason to pretend. If I do it once, I do it again. Add it up, bankroll, euro, peso, add it up. I'm just doing me, everything is on me. Oh, you matter what? Add it up. I ran up a check, I might do it again. Enemies close, had me thinking they're friends. 10 toes down, I'll be free until the end. Crib outside the city, I don't feel safe in my hands. Took so many years, I'm just waiting for the wins. I'm in debt to no one but the one who took my sins. I do it for real, there's no reason to pretend. If I do it once, I do it again. Add it up, bankroll, euro, peso, add it up. I'm just doing me, everything is on me. Oh, you matter what? Add it up. I ran up a check, I might do it again. Enemies close, had me thinking they're friends. 10 toes down, I'll be free until the end. Crib outside the city, I don't feel safe in my hands. Took so many years, I'm just waiting for the wins. I'm in debt to no one but the one who took my sins. I do it for real, there's no reason to pretend. If I do it once, I do it again. Add it up, bankroll, euro, peso, add it up. I'm just doing me, everything is on me. Oh, you matter what? Add it up. I ran up a check, I might do it again. Enemies close, had me thinking they're friends. 10 toes down, I'll be free until the end. Crib outside the city, I don't feel safe in my hands. Took so many years, I'm just waiting for the wins. I'm in debt to no one but the one who took my sins. I do it for real, there's no reason to pretend. If I do it once, I do it again. Add it up, bankroll, euro, peso, add it up. I'm just doing me, everything is on me. Oh, you matter what? Add it up. I ran up a check, I might do it again. Enemies close, had me thinking they're friends. 10 toes down, I'll be free until the end. Crib outside the city, I don't.
All right, we are back now, guys. All right, let's get into this a little bit after all this tournament talk. Now, first thing I kind of want to get into, guys, is we've been hearing a lot. Obviously, the big main thing that a lot of people talk about is obviously the interaction between Stephen A. Smith and LeBron, things like that. But also, the first thing I want to kind of touch on is, for me, is, and I kind of want to bring this to Mike's attention. We both have talked about this a little bit, but just to lay it out on the line a little bit is what has happened to ESPN? Like, what ESPN used to be like one TV in the house was on. It was on ESPN, right? Sports Center, getting all the news. You'd have all the scores run at the bottom. That was how. And before, that's how you used to get your information too, right? We didn't have these fancy phones. We didn't have these apps, these fantasy apps to get all these sports and all your alerts on what's going on in certain games, right? That's just not what it is anymore. So what has happened for me to ESPN? You know what I mean? And all this extra stuff that that we're dealing with, and for me, Mike, what has ESPN meant to you in the past?
I mean, when I started listening to ESPN or watching ESPN, but I mean, it was Chris Berman, is the catalyst to a lot of this, and they've had so many people. Dan Patrick was there, obviously, and a host of others. There's a name that I forget, but there's been so many. But it was just literally about relaying, the day's sporting events to you, and discussing the day's games. It wasn't so much about your personal takes, your opinions.
It was still entertaining, right?
It was
entertaining.
It was massive.
You had guys like Stuart Scott and Trey Wingo and Steve Levy and Dan Patrick, all these guys that they would go out there and they'd give you the news for the day, and it was just the news of what happened in the game, what the percentage was, what the score was, what happened, any big plays, any big injuries. That's what it was. It wasn't about going out here and saying, wow, KD just looked terrible. And then you look at his stats, he was like 28, 5, and 6. Like, what do you mean he had a terrible game? You know what I mean? LeBron drops another. It's always somebody dropped another one or lost it, rather than just giving praise to the team that actually won the game. You know what I mean? And like you said, you go on there and you would just watch highlights. And they would do it entertaining. You had Stuart Scott talking about cooler than the other side of the pillow. Chris Berman on, whether it be during football season, you got ESPN, you got NFL Countdown with ESPN Primetime with him and Tom Jackson, right? They would go out there and yes, they'd give their opinion on certain things, but not to a point where these guys absolutely debate, right? You didn't see Chris Berman get into a fight with Tom Jackson on Primetime, right? You didn't watch Stuart Scott and Trey Wingo go back and forth with each other on Sports Center about who was this, who was that, who was better. And that's all we see now on this network. And you go back and it starts with First Take. I used to be a huge fan of First Take with Stephen A. And Skip when he was there, and then Skip goes on to do other something else. Now Max is there. And then I didn't think Max was terrible. I thought Max was okay. He was good. And then he gave better insights at stuff because he was able to bring in the boxing. He's so knowledgeable in boxing. That's what helped the show out too at certain times. Get it going. But then it got worse. They started bringing guys in like Ryan Holland, right? Who the hell is this guy to come in? He had nothing but terrible takes, and everything now is a debate. Everything is an anger thing.
But it's not just that, bud.
And I get we're to that point too, and that's why we've changed ours to where we're at, because we're tired of listening to this crap that we see day in and day out on these things where. And I'm not saying every. I'll get to you, Mike. Sorry, but let me just point this out one quick.
You're good.
I don't mind the debate shows. Don't get me wrong with this, but what happened to the Sports Center that we used to love, that we used to put on, that we used to watch, the shows that actually didn't have to worry about debating, that you could sit there and just enjoy? It feels like there's none of those shows out here anymore.
And there's not, but because it's now corporate driven, and corporate is all about appeasing to everybody, and it's about making money. When did we reach a point where, and this folks is not an attack on women when I say this, right? It's not, because women have as much of a place in debating sports and playing sports, as men do, because they're very capable at it. But my point is this. If I'm watching Stephen A. and I'm watching Shannon and I'm watching Dan Orlovsky sit there and they're debating, the Sunday football game, why do I have to have Molly Querim as a mediator? What is her background? What is she really? No, listen to me here.
Let me say, because you're true, because she never has them in order. She never in order.
Well, exactly. But my thing is why when did this become necessary? You know, when I'm listening to them on Wednesdays, and I do listen because I like to listen to Doggy on there talking with everybody, and Jeff Saturday, and Steven's usually there and that type of thing, and he's got his irritations and all that stuff. But Molly is there, and I'm sorry, folks, she's really not there as an information piece. She's there as eye candy. I'm not there for the eye candy. I'm there like we've been talking about. I want you guys to talk to me about sports. I want you to talk to me about the games that just took place the day before. I don't want to hear about the political stance by this athlete. I don't want to hear necessarily about, and I understand some of these things are necessary if we're talking about this domestic violence thing that happened. But they're not focusing on the topics at hand. It becomes more about a personal statement. If we go back to what Bud's talking about with Stephen A and LeBron, and Stephen A, you know, he's so wishy-washy now about most of the stuff that he talks about. He sits there and he goes on rants about, you know, Bronny and all these other things. But then he gets called out at a basketball game where LeBron literally walks up to him and tells him to knock the crap off and stop talking to us about my kid, you know, and focus on other things. And then the next day, Stephen A literally backtracks and puts himself in a position of saying, no, I never did say that. If you listen to me, I said this. I don't need this. I don't need this. I don't need your diatribe about, you know, what you did or didn't do. Okay, this shouldn't ever come to this in the first place. You know, we're not here to just debate. And Anthony and I do this all the time, but we do this off screen. We're not here to debate, Bronny's uselessness, or is he actually going to be a contributor, 5 years from now? We're talking about in the moment. We're talking about his in-game performance. But it becomes this outside the box thing here, and just like with LeBron and all these other things. But the media has corrupted so much. Corporations have corrupted so much. It's become this woke mentality where nobody, when they do talk, Bud, they don't want to really criticize anybody anymore because, oh, we can't do that. We can't say this. We can't talk. We can't say that, Angel Reese sucks. We can't really literally call her out like that. We can't say LeBron this, LeBron that, but the other side of that is the media has allowed athletes to have too much of a say. Everybody's got a podcast now. Everybody's got a podcast. The water boys got a podcast. The cheerleaders got a podcast. I mean, you get so many podcasts now, it becomes this oversized soap opera. You don't know who's saying what and what the truth is and what it's not anymore. Now you got LeBron on there talking about what Stephen A said and Stephen A saying what LeBron said. You never know what's going on. It just becomes so much overkill, and you reach the point where it's just like this flood that just, you don't have a bucket big enough to start tossing the water out anymore because of all this garbage. We didn't have that when I was growing up. Your dad and me, we'd get on the phone and talk about what we saw on ESPN like you're talking. It was pure. It was simple. It was just about, how did Elway get the 255 yards passing in that game? That type of thing. Man, did you see how Burt Jones balled out? And we're going back, decades with this. It was simple. And I understand that technology doesn't allow for that anymore, but we turn it into this massive soap opera. I got Shannon calling out Ocho Cinco because he showed up late for a podcast one night and all this other crap, or Ocho getting into it with Harrison about this, and it's ridiculous.
This is kind of where because I'm kind of back and forth on the athlete podcast. But what I don't like seeing is, and you brought it up with like Dan Orlovsky, even Shannon's a little bit different because Shannon's a different character on First Take than he is on his Nightcap or Club Shay Shay, right? He has to be more it's
night
day. Where for me, I'm tired of seeing the athletes on these top on the ESPNs or whatever because they're different characters. You got guys like Kendrick Perkins that act like he knows everything, like he was like he's in the GOAT debate or something or top 10 ever, and and I get you played the sport. That's fine. I respect the fact that you play sport. I respect you played at a high level. It's not easy to make that. There's tons of people out here that have tried to make it, and they did it. You both have like guys like Orlovsky and Perkins. They've made it to high level. They played in the NBA. They played in the NFL. That's great. But you guys weren't at the top. You guys were never number one options in your league. You guys were never a starting quarterback that led your team to the Super Bowl or to an NFC championship game, right? Orlovsky's known for running out of the end zone, right? Kendrick Perkins is known for just being an enforcer inside. He's just a guy that rebounds the ball, do everything, okay? Just then act like, if you want to be out there, you want to be an analyst or whatever, fine, do your thing, but don't throwing shade at these guys that are way better than you. Way better than they've ever been, and you're out here throwing shade on these guys. somebody like a Shannon, fine, he has room to speak, right? 3-time Super Bowl champion, Hall of Famer, all these points. I mean, he could be in the debate for the best tight end ever. I clearly, we're not going to get into that tonight, but we could. He's in that debate. He could be in one of the best tight ends to ever play this game, right? He has a reason to go and say what he wants to say. That's fine. But for me, and going into these podcasts, I'm okay with the podcast. I'm okay with Paul George having, and sorry guys, I forgot to fix these. Let me fix these now. I didn't do my job today on my on making everything look good. But getting into these podcasts, I don't mind them. I'm okay with them.
See, I do, but
like maybe not and let me rephrase that. I'm okay with the retired athletes having the podcast now. I'm not okay with the guys that are playing now having them. The Micah Parsons, the Paul Georges, all this and that, right? But I'm okay with Gil's Arena. I love those guys. I'm okay with watching Ryan Clark and Fred Taylor with Channing Crown. I'm okay with watching those. Jeff Teague and them, Club 5280. Those guys put on a great show. All the smoke with Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes. Nightcap, Shannon, Ocho, Brooklyn Nine, Brooklyn with Mello. I'm good with that. Those guys are retired. The reason I'm okay with them is I love to finally hear the story. We didn't get the Mike. Imagine, think about it here. You grew up watching sports 70s and 80s, right? Think about being able to, after the 70s, being able to say, turn on your phone and go on to YouTube, and you're watching Larry Bird and Magic Johnson on like a Bird Magic podcast. And they get to talk about all their stuff that they were about, some of the things they went through, what they seen, their life. They're starting to do that now. They get these guys on these podcasts, right? And they get to talk to them, and you finally get to hear those stories. But imagine if you could have had that back then. It is so cool to finally hear what the NBA is like. Because I'm not going to lie, it's actually made me change the way I feel about some of these players. I wasn't a huge Barnes fan or Steven Jackson fan. I always thought, everybody knows Matt Barnes for the fake to the Kobe face. Kobe doesn't flinch, right? But a lot of people hated him for that. What are you coming after Kobe for? You? Matt Barnes is a great person. He's fun to listen to. Him and Steven Jackson put together a tremendous show there. Gil's Arena. I was never a fan of Brandon Jennings. I was never a fan of Gilbert Arenas, Nick Young. I loved Kenyon Martin. Huge fan of Rashad McCants because he was at North Carolina. But I've changed now. I don't really care for as much as what Rashad has to say. I always feel like he has terrible takes on certain things. They always had to put him in his place with them and things like that. But Kenyon, love listening to these guys. It's fun to listen to these guys now outside of this because they're giving you more information about stuff that happened while they were playing, which is fine. And they have the right. A lot of these guys that are doing it, they were high-level people. Ryan Clark, tremendous defensive player. Fred Taylor, all-pro running back. Gilbert Arenas, all-star. Brandon Jennings, Kenyon Martin, all-star. First #1 pick. All these guys are great. They have a reason. Guys like Shannon and Ocho, they're top of the players to have their thing. Mallow, tremendous. It's the guys that haven't played at that top tier or the guys that are in now. Why are you doing it in-house now? Why, when you're still playing in the league, do you think you can go out there and throw shade on the rest of these guys?
Well, it's not only that, but you mentioned it with Micah Parsons, and this is one thing, and I'm still opposed to it. But to your point, if you're an active player, this needs to stop because if I'm an owner, if I'm a coach, I need you, the athlete, focused on your responsibilities. And I don't care what you're telling me about your downtime. You're in the middle of a season. You need to focus on this, and you're not doing that. You're not completely focused if you're conducting podcasts. The NBA is even more ridiculous. This is night to night. Okay, I don't need you, doing your podcast after a game or getting to the hotel and then you jump on a late night podcast when you've got a game the next day. Don't tell me you can come out and focus like that. You can't focus. You cannot be your maximum at level performance if you're doing these. Those kind of things need to stop. The one issue I take, I'm not opposed to anybody having a podcast, like you mentioned too, but I don't need Joe Average Guy, every Joe Average Guy having a podcast. I mean, I'm sorry, you don't know. You're not the guy to enlighten me. Sometimes I struggle with Dan dude, you're a journeyman quarterback. I mean, sometimes you're treated like you're in the Hall of Fame, and it's just not the reality. And that's another aspect of what's going on in the media. That, to touch on your point, it's great to have the Shannons out there, and it's great to have the Ryan Clarks out there, who have a knowledge base and things like that. But we continue to give these guys platforms that, I'm sorry, you don't deserve this. Your playing level, I get that you know some things. Your playing career doesn't tell me, and listening to you speak has proven to me that your knowledge isn't what it needs to be in front of a national audience telling me what this team is doing wrong and that player is doing right. That is not the case. You're not that dude.
My thing too is,
you're not.
I don't mind. Here's the thing. If you want to have a podcast and you're so fine. If you're doing it just to say, hey, I want to get some of these old timers on, just to relive old times, fine. If you're just sitting there to have a conversation, to get some guys on, to just have fun, because I have no problem. You got to have some chill time, right? Some of these athletes, they can't even step out of their own houses and stuff because of the fact that anytime they go, they get bombarded with people, right? So you have to find something to do where you're at. If you want to have an hour and a half podcast talking to old people, fine. I just don't like the ones that come on here and they're talking about their team. They're talking about other teams, other players. While you're already in the league, why are you doing that? Because somebody like Micah, who are you to talk about? What has Dallas done recently? You know what I mean? They're on their way down. They haven't even made – they still haven't made any move. What they made one move to get Javonte Williams from Denver, right? And what, Cooper Rush just left them. He's now a backup in, Baltimore or something like that? It's like you guys still haven't done anything, but yet you still constantly – they lost DeMarcus Lawrence, who DeMarcus Lawrence goes out and says, I was never going to win anyways there. You know what I mean? And maybe that's because they noticed that their best guy is too worried about being on podcasts talking about their owner and talking about their team or talking about other people, other teams, and then they put a target on their back, right?
Yeah. And I'm not, and I'm going to say this real quick, folks, and trust me, I love the Kelceys. I really do. I like Travis. I like Jason. But here's my point, and this really speaks to that. It really does. Now, I believe it's highly possible that Jason will go into the Hall of Fame. I think he's been a legit center. I think his record speaks for itself, his performance on the field. Yeah. But let's get real here. If not for his brother, if not for the person that his brother is dating, this guy, Jason, is not going to have the #1 podcast or one of them in the entire country. That would not happen. It's not based on his knowledge. It's based on what his association is.
I will say this. I think you are 100% right that I don't think the podcast blows up if he does do it by himself. But he's
enjoyable and he's knowledgeable.
I think after more people have watched, just like me, how I've said there's some people that I've met about, but I'm sure after they've watched him, and I don't know if you catched him, but I watched a lot of people. I think will switch to saying, man, this Jason Kelce is actually a really good guy. He's a great person. He's a tremendous father, tremendous husband. He's great. There's a reason he lasted as long as the NFL that he did. There's a reason he's going to be in the Hall. He better be in the Hall of Fame. I will be mad. Because
I agree with you.
And we're going to talk about this too. When NFL gets started too, guys, there's a lot of stuff we're going to talk about. We talk about why we're so angry. We're going to get into it because we have a lot of Hall of Fame anger that we talk about. That would be one of those that would really make me mad if he didn't make it, because there's no reason why he shouldn't make it.
Yeah. And I like Jason. I think he's a great guy. And yeah, if you listen to his podcast, Bud, very knowledgeable guy, very personable guy. I get it. But the bottom line here is if he doesn't have that association, that show isn't where it is right now. He doesn't have the commercials that he has. He doesn't have this other side talk show thing he does too. His wife has the #1 podcast in the country. His wife, all due to association. Again, this begets that begets this, the media. Again, like you said, Parsons sitting here, running his mouth about things during the week. And granted, without this guy in the field, the defense struggles. He comes back, they play very well. But guess what? Why don't you focus more on that during the season, and then you can deal with the other stuff after the fact. Do your podcast. I get it. Maybe you pick one time, once a week or something like that, or whatever you're doing. or blow it up during the off season. You're a pretty popular guy. I'm sure you can make it work. But let's get focused on what we need to. And we don't need everybody who's ever had a name, who's ever stepped on a court, stepped on a field, thrown a ball, swung a bat, sitting there telling us how everything works and what's good and what's not. You don't know. You
Definitely.
don't know. And it's just ridiculous now. I mean, everybody's got this.
I don't understand why a lot of these players let these guys get into their heads anyways. Like, so what? Everybody's always had something to say.
What's
I'm
Draymond
sorry,
Green
but
doing?
if you're a top player in the league, say, just take the top 10 players in the NBA right now, right? Ever since they were young, even starting in probably middle school, they've been watched. Going to high school, they were criticized. If they made it to college, they were criticized in college or given the hype. You've always been talked about since before the NBA. So why now? Because it's your peers? Because it's, well, I don't know what it is. But then, not only that, but then we're getting so soft to a point, and yeah, I'm gonna call it soft. We're getting soft to a point where what's so wrong with what Stephen A. said about Bronny? I get that that's your son, okay, right? I mean, it's fine.
Grow
That's
a
your
spine
son. You
and
can
shut
be a father all you want,
up.
but he's also a grown man in the NBA. He can fight his own back. He's in the NBA. He doesn't need daddy to hold him.
Who put him in
He
that
did
position?
put him, but I'm saying even if he doesn't put it, even if he makes it, so what? There's gonna be people talking about him. Even if LeBron
your
doesn't
belly
put him in the
aching.
NBA, and Bronny still makes it at the same pick he is, right? He's still going to get criticized because he's LeBron James' son, regardless. LeBron just made it worse by putting him into the NBA. Let him make it when he's ready and good to go. I'm sorry, but those numbers at USC were not good enough to be in the NBA yet. And he's shown he's not good enough to be in the NBA yet.
And here's the other part of it, but so okay, we can split this. Let's put the media aside for a second. To your point, LeBron, you are the one who insisted that your kid, I don't care what you say, you're the reason you insisted that that kid be brought to the NBA when he wasn't ready. So when you agreed to that, then you basically agreed to any criticism that comes with it because it's a platform. If I step on a stage and I'm singing tunes, I'm putting myself out there for criticism. I have to accept that. Some people aren't going to like me. They're going to point blank tell me, Mike, you suck. Get off the stage. Okay, I agreed to this. Your kid knows this. You know this. So when you said we got to have him, you put him out there for everybody to take shots at. And if his performance was going to suck, which it has at times, guess what? Here come the arrows. So you better let him deal with it because someday you're not going to be there to wipe his backside and make everything right. It doesn't work that way. He's a public figure on one of the biggest franchises in sports. So if you can't take it, then you may as well step away and just move on with life. But you wouldn't let him do that. So now when somebody criticizes him, you're all pissed off because, well, that's not right. That's my kid. I get it. You're a dad. But guess what, Pops? You're the one who put your kid out there in the first place. So why don't you shut the F up and let him take it like a man and you step back and quit being a little, you know what, and just let him grow. That's on you. That's on you. And any other person that's out there doing this. So shut the F up and let people have their opinions. I'm not saying they beat you into the ground, but that's your platform. And that's what you agreed to. And that's what the media's helped create now. You had your own podcast sitting there talking to your head coach who wasn't even your head coach. And now look where we're at with this.
Yeah. No, I'm
it's ridiculous.
I'm so I don't know when we got so soft about certain things. I don't know when it becomes, too much. But like I said, for the most part, I'm 50-50 on the podcast. I'm halfway where if you're in the NBA, if you're playing right now in the league, I don't think you should have one. If you are out of the league already, you're retired, do your own thing. I don't care. I'm good with it because most of the time I'm probably going to watch it, if anything. Because if you're somebody that I enjoy, somebody I like watching, somebody that can give good entertainment. That's the thing is, most of these ones that we've mentioned, they're also entertaining. It's not just a bunch of guys sitting up here just talking smack. Like, they bring on people. They have good conversations. They have good arguments about certain things. They get into it good. So I'm okay with that. At that point, it's just I don't like it when they're already in the league. There's no reason you mentioned it. You hit it right on the head, Mike. If you're playing right now, you need to focus on playing the game. You need to focus on being a better player, working out, not worried about who's next on, to come on, who's, what you got going lined up for this. You don't need to be talking smack about the next player that you're coming up against. You don't need to talk about smack about your own organization either on there. Leave that to them. Go and talk behind closed doors for that. But yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm good with it.
And real quick, the last thing I'll say about this too, but kind of touching on what you said, is with these athletes who get into it, one criticizes the other. They're not on the same program, but or some have programs, others have smaller programs. One starts throwing out insults, the other fires back. Next thing you know, we've got this running disrespect for each other. Well, I'll meet you here if you want to meet me there, and I don't need to hear all this stuff. You're you're no longer being professional. You're allowing a bunch of insults to get to a grown individual. You're supposed to be talking to people. We're not here for your personal hates and dislikes about each other. You're supposed to be talking to us about your knowledge base and what was going on currently in that particular sport. Give us that. I don't need to know who went to the parking lot, at Denny's and beat the crap out of the other. Leave that to whatever you want to do off screen or off text or whatever. That's not what this is about. You give them a platform, use it correctly like Bud's talking about.
Well, we're going to get into this next subject. Mike, you and I have talked about this because we also want to get into, and hopefully you guys liked it. Well, we did our rank these again, so this year Mike is going to talk to me about my rank these. But before we get into the rank these, something Mike and I have brought up recently, because this past game between Boston and OKC, Boston put up over 63 pointers in that game, I believe, Mike, or something like that, right?
34 in the second quarter. 34.
So the ball has really changed the game, right? And for me, I feel like it hasn't, I guess, maybe for the better. You know what I mean? Hasn't been there, but at the same time, I don't know.
It's where the game's at.
I'm with you.
It's where the game's at. Like you always remind me, but it's where the game is at. And it's sad because, and you can look at comments from past players, that no longer play, and talking about even back then, we're talking 10 years ago, the degression of the game, as I like to use, as opposed to progression. And this isn't on Steph Curry. This is Steph Curry's game, part of his game. That's what he does. He didn't follow somebody. This is what he does.
Why, there used to be, when we watched this game, Mike, right? There was great three-point shooters. We've always grown up with great three-point shooters. It just wasn't the whole game, right? The whole game wasn't just three-point shooting, right? There was other things that came about. Because we've had Ray Allen, we've had Reggie Miller, we've had Drazen Petrovic, Peja Stojakovic. These are all tremendous shooters, right? But that wasn't their only game. Peja wasn't just to sit out there and shoot three-pointers all day long, right? He could get to the rack, he could score, he could shoot free throw. Ray Allen could score from the mid-range, from outside, get to the basket. He was a great free throw shooter. Reggie Miller did everything when he's played, right? So for me, it's like, when did the three-point all of a sudden become, that's it, that's everything? I've seen guys get the ball, right? I've seen them get a rebound, grab it, they're right under the basket. What more do you want than to look up and dunk it, lay up, and we go dish it back out for a three? Why do we do that now? Why? And the other thing that really irks me is in late game situations, you're down by 6, you're down by 4, whatever it may be, right? There's still 40 to 50 seconds left in the game. Why are we already jacking up a 3? Why are we putting up threes to make it seem like, oh, we got to get a 3 right now? No, you don't. Get an easy 2. It's okay to be down by 4 and get an easy 2 and be down by 2. You're going to get the ball back, you're going to foul, or you can get a steal and go right back in. Why do we feel like the 3 ball is all that we have to shoot nowadays?
I think there's multiple facets to this. I think one, it's a sexy thing to do. 2, I think it's a lack of the athlete to want to put forth the effort it takes to create the 2-point shot, whether it's a layup or it's just a quick inside shot or it's a pass to somebody that's open inside. Is that type of thing?
Shot does take away from other abilities?
Of course it does. It's 100% detrimental because it no longer contributes to. I'm sorry. you know, the Celtics can win the title last year, but I'm telling you right now, folks, I saw this with Kentucky years ago, right? And I'm going back to when this was, you know, Kentucky was the authentic blue blood. Every year was a trip to the Final Four. And I can't remember the exact year, but you're talking about a team who lived and died by the three, died by it and lived by it. And I knew that at some point, and this was a team that was top two, top three that year. They were going to the tournament, probably to the Final Four and possibly the chip game. At some point, I knew, much like if you asked your dad, that if you live by the three, you're going to die by the three. And at some point, Kentucky hit that wall. The three wasn't dropping. The other team was consistent, and they lost. You can't do this. The percentages are not there. Boston won the championship last year. Folks, you don't win championships off threes. It's just launching threes, 60 plus threes every game or whatever you're doing. It doesn't work that way. There's no creativity. There's no continuity to what you're doing. You can't go out there and have a coach tell me that every day in practice, he's telling his guys just to run 60 minutes of threes, and you know that's what our game plan is going to be. It doesn't work like that. Teams adjust, they figure you out. And if you don't have an inside game, you're not winning. And Boston is not going to win it this year, launching up threes. Oklahoma City has already shown a game plan that they can use to adapt to this and prevent Boston from being successful. And I guarantee you, Cleveland, who knows them even better, will have something to say about this too when they meet in the playoffs. You can't live by that, but it's the sexy thing to do. You don't have to put up any effort for it. There's no creativity. It's just launch it, and then you don't even want to get back on defense and do anything with it. It's ridiculous. It's one of the most detrimental things that basketball has seen, the NBA has seen in the last 15, 20 years. And I know it's a sexy thing to see, and I know, you know, Steph Curry makes it look easy, but that is Steph Curry's game.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Mike. That Steph Curry was born to shoot like that. He was born to be that good. This
is what he did in college.
Yes, guys, he does shoot a lot of threes. Yes, he is. And I don't know about you, Mike, but I'd have to say he is the best shooter I've ever seen in my life. But at the same thing, that's not all he does. You guys make it seem like all he does is just live out there. He gets inside. He assists the ball. He rebounds. He gets layups. He makes hard fouls. The other thing is not only that does he shoot well, the guy's a 90+% free throw shooter too. He makes his points from the free throw line too. So just as much as any other guys, right? Reggie was a great free throw shooter. Ray Allen, tremendous free throw shooter. Most of these shooters, yes, they are going to be. There's some that weren't. Like Kyle Korver wasn't a tremendous free throw shooter, I don't think. I mean, he was really good.
No.
AJ was very, very good too. They are going to be good for him. But at the same time, that's a lot of these guys like a Reggie. Like I said, Reggie shot threes when need be, right? It wasn't his whole game, but he could shoot them. Of course, if he needed to, he would take over and do it. Allen Houston, same thing. But those guys could get to the racks. They could. And on top of that, some of those other guys, they could play defense. Reggie Miller's a great defender. Allen Houston, tremendous defender. So for me, my other problem with it is, okay, you guys want to shoot threes, fine. But my other issue is, why are you so far back? There's a reason there's a line. As long as your foot's not touching it, get as close as possible to that thing. I don't really care if you shoot it from half court or if you shoot it at the line. The numbers don't change. It's still 3 points. So why not get the best possible shot with the highest percentage, which is right there at the line, rather than at the half-court shot? Because why? Because you see Steph Curry do it. But you've seen Steph. It goes back to what we talked about with Kareem. How come nobody else shoots the sky hook? Because they can't. It doesn't do it. He was born with that shot. He was born to do that. Steph Curry was born to shoot the ball that far. Yes, there are other players that could do it. A Dame Lillard can do it. Paul George has shown he could do it, but not consistently. The only person that's shown it consistently is Dame. Dame Lillard's probably the second best guy that can shoot from deep like that and do it consistently. Other than that, there's nobody that goes into game in and game out every single night and hits 2 or 3 deep threes like that every single game. It's those two or just Steph. There's a reason for that, guys. And as far as these teams that shoot threes, just because that's the way you guys see it, and that's I hate the whole. It goes even in football, right? Oh, it's a passing league now. But if it doesn't win you the game, you have to stick passing the ball? I'm sorry, but Philadelphia just won a Super Bowl by running the heck out of Saquon Barkley. That's what they needed. That's how they won a Super Bowl, with Saquon. Saquon ran the ball. He ran to a Super Bowl. And Jalen Hurts and them played good. I guess. I didn't watch the game. So,
And I've heard ideas bandied about what we can do, what the NBA can do. And I'm sorry, Commissioner Penis Head doesn't really have any input with this, and so I put him aside as to how all things are managed, in the NBA. But their commissioner is one of the biggest jokes I've come across in decades. So I know the NBA has bandied about ideas about how to, counter this fascination with the three. Let's move the 3-point line out further, which I'm not necessarily opposed to. But how do if the mentality is to shoot it, I don't know that you discourage them just because you move it out another couple feet or 3 feet or whatever you do. And now you're talking about, well, maybe we'll move it out further, but if they hit it, it's a 4-point shot
I'll
and
tell
this
you
type
what.
of stupidity. And I'm sorry, I'm almost to the point now that we should just eliminate it and we should just go back to
No, I'll
basic
tell you what.
2-point
Go ahead.
basketball.
If I was a coach in the NBA, I'd say you want to extend it. Go ahead. And you know what I'm doing? The next thing, because this is the other thing that's died, is the big man inside, right? Because all these big men
Yeah.
are shooting outside, right? But you want to go ahead and push. Fine, go push it out because all of them guys are going to come out more, which is going to leave that middle space open. Give me a guy that's ready to be inside on the block. I'm going to dump it into him. He can go to work all day. That would really actually help out. You know, that'll help out a little bit more. It'd probably be like a Jokic to get more points inside too, because the guy already does enough outside, right? So you push more people outside because they got to be out on the perimeter because the 3-point line is pushed out more. Give it to him inside. Nobody's stopping him inside. Go to the block then, Yoke. And then because the other thing is you push it back. Okay, somebody has to come back and double team on that or try to help. Then he's just gonna dish it back out, and then you get your three, right? I don't think it could work. If I'm an NBA player, I'm saying don't do that. They already shoot deep anyway. Unless you're telling me I'm gonna push it out and extend it, and you're gonna give me more points, it turns into a 4-pointer now or something like that. Okay, fine. But if it's still gonna be 3, no, don't move it. They already shoot that deep. Already as it is now, it doesn't matter if we move it. It's still the same amount of points, but don't move it back because then I can still kind of play my zone on these big men that go inside a little bit. I can still help instead of being further out. That's what I would say. But if I'm a coach, I'm loving it. Give me a big guy inside that can score.
Here's the catch-22 of it all is so many of these kids struggle to make a 3-pointer from where it's at now. And yet, if that's the direction you choose to go in, let's move it out further, you're not going to improve anything. You're just going to send them out to where they make less threes. And it doesn't solve anything. Ultimately, you have to find a way to convince these guys to play basketball. There needs to be, you talked about this, Bud, you got to go back to the fundamentals. You just have to. I mean, I know it's not sexy. I know it's boring. I don't want to see 89, 90 basketball games. I saw that with the Knicks back in the day when Pat Riley was there, and it was some of the worst basketball I've ever seen. I like points. I do. I like 130, 125. But do it the right way. Don't just launch up stupid-ass 34, threes in a quarter, 60-plus threes in a game, and you lose. If you can't learn from that, I don't know what to tell you. But they've got to find a way to get back to some type of fundamentals.
I'm not sitting here saying, like, there shouldn't just be shooters because every team needs a shooter. You need a guy like a Kyle Korver, a J.R. Smith, those guys that can hit outside shots when need be. It just doesn't need to be your number one option every time down the court. Yes, those guys like Korver, I don't want to say Clay because Clay did a lot too, but Korver's probably best. Craig Hodges, those guys like that, right? Steve Curry, Steve Kerr is one of the top 3-point shooters for the career, right? Those guys, you put them on a position where there's a possibility I'm going to get double team if I dished out to you. Okay, you take a shot, you make it because you're wide open. It's not come down, run a play for him to come off 3 or 4 screens and shoot that 3 every single time until he keeps it. And the problem is they don't know when to stop. You know what I mean? There's
that's the best. They don't know when to stop.
Like they're waiting. Eventually, they're like, we're gonna heat up. We're gonna get there. We're gonna heat up. No, I'm sorry, but if you came down at least 3 times and shot a 3, and you've missed all 3, now it's time to try to run something out. Try to do something. Get inside. Get you a good bucket because more than likely you start off a game missing 3 threes in a row, right? They come down and they get 2s. You're down 6-0. So you're not terrible, possibly. Okay. All right, no, let's just get a quick bucket. You get a quick bucket inside. Now you're only down 4, okay? Instead, you come back down, jack up some more 3s. You keep missing, they come down. Maybe they hit a 3. Then they got a 2 in. You get a stupid foul. Next thing you know, you're down, 12-0 because you jacked up 6 threes to start off the game. And now somebody got a foul. You're down 12-0. You got the momentum down because why? Why? The game is still. What is so wrong? Like it's almost like it's almost like the kids game that they play. The floor is lava. It's almost like the paint is lava. They don't want to stay inside. Nobody wants to go inside anymore. Unless they're trying to go in for a posterizing dunk to be on the highlight, right? That's the only reason people go inside. The post up on the block big man is no longer in the NBA anymore.
Oh no, that's a relic. But like you mentioned too, Bud, it's also at the start of this topic. It's also about situational basketball. The coach understands, but here's the thing. You also, as the player, the coach is entrusting in you to have an understanding of where you're at situationally. So if you're down 5 points and there's a minute 35 left, or let's say a minute 45, minute 50, you're down 5. There's no reason at that point as a player to come down and launch a three-pointer. Absolutely no reason for this. You work it inside. If the three is absolutely there and Seth is open in the corner, kick it out to him. The percentages are there. Maybe you take the shot. But the reality is, since you're not Steph, work it inside. You're down 5. You've got a minute 50 to go. Get the 2 and then go back on defense and play some defense and see how this works out. You don't need to come down and start launching threes.
Point there, right?
The percentages are there.
Point real quick right there about you throw it out. If Steph is wide open, fine. He has the green light to shoot that shot. If he's wide open, you make a shoot. But when you're dropping it out to number 11 on the bench there, and he's just jacking up the 3 or 4 times because he thinks he's wide open.
And he's missed 8.
No, we're not doing that. You know what I mean? Yes, you're wide open. You want to shoot it one time because nobody's on you. Okay, you take that one shot. I mean, all right, cool. It's okay. But I don't want to look at the stat sheet and show that you played, 25 minutes tonight, but you were 0 for 10 from the 3-point line, 1 for 6 from the 3-point line. I mean, from the field goal percentage. You're 2 points on 0 rebounds and 1 assist. You did nothing for that game. You put up 8 3-pointers and made none of them. That means you just kept shooting. Why?
So here's the other point, Bud. And this goes back to the coach. Okay, so let's use the number 11 that Anthony just talked about. He's come down. Let's say we're just starting the game. We're not even the halftime yet. Number 11's put up 8 threes. He's missed 5. Whatever. At some point, if I'm a coach, and I'm pretty sure Anthony's on the same page with me on this. If I'm the coach and I understand I got an owner up in the box who's going to get pissed. You want to fire me, fire me. But if I'm a good coach, I'm going to stick with what I know. I'm going to tell my players, if you're not Steph Curry, if you're out on that court and you continue to launch up threes that are bouncing off the rim, I'm going to pull your ass out of the game and I'm going to sit you on that bench. I'll put anybody else out there who's going to give me the effort. I'm not going to sit here and take a 2-point deficit. Next thing I know, I got an 11-point deficit because your ass can't listen to what I'm saying and can't realize that your shot's not dropping. So either do it like I say, or I will bench you in the game. I do not care. And if the owner wants to come down on me, go ahead. But if I'm a successful coach, go ahead and do what you want to do. That's the game plan. That's what I need you to do. And if you don't like it, fire me. But you're not going to have these athletes out here running amok, doing what they want. It's not shoot threes, whenever I so choose. It's got to be situational basketball. And like Bud said, you're not Steph Curry, so don't do it.
I'm definitely with you, Mike. Well, we'll probably get into this obviously more. We'll have more talks about basketball. Playoffs are right around the corner coming up here. So we'll probably have more talks about this because I'm sure some games will end up going down to threes or playing too many threes, and it'll be something we talk about. But I want to cut us off here. We only got about maybe 15 more minutes or so. I want to get into our rank these, guys. I think we're having fun with this. I want Mike to try to get in with us to have these. So we'll be right back in a few seconds with these rank We have now. Mike is going to let me know. Once again, guys, we're calling this Rank These. I'm going to blindly rank whatever Mike has picked for us tonight. He's going to give me 5 options. I got to rank them in order 1 through 5. when I first hear it. So he's gonna give me my first one. I'm gonna put it wherever I think I would try to get it, but I also got to try to guess possibly where he could be. But Mike, what are we doing tonight? What am I guessing?
All right, folks. So I was excited about this because we started last week and Anthony hit me with some movies. I'm gonna go. Anthony knows nothing about
No,
this, obviously,
no,
so I'm gonna get a little
no.
bit personal with him here because this goes back to something that he and I experienced back when he was a little bit younger. But what I'm curious about here is it's a position in football. It's also because at one point in time, and Anthony still has all of these. He has a lot of throwback football jerseys, right? So what I want Anthony to give me is I've got 5, right? So here's what we're gonna do. Now it's gotta be also about the jersey. It's not just the player, it's the jersey. So which like a throwback jersey. So I'm gonna start with
Let's see.
Earl Campbell. And it's also the jersey, but these are throwback jerseys. This is the Houston Oilers, not the Tennessee Titans, obviously Houston Oilers. Got that love you blue.
I'm so interested to see what else you have on this list, which is making me hard because I really want to. I really want to put that as my number one, but I have a feeling you might say a different one that I could put up there. So I'm gonna go two. I'm gonna go two with that one though. Right now, I love
Yes, I'm gonna write these down.
that Oiler blue. I love that.
Oh, I know you
I
do.
just showed you recently. I just got those the Carolina blue Jordan ones, and that actually matches perfectly with those ones.
Yeah.
But I love Earl Campbell as a player. I love the jersey. I love the colors. Obviously, if they one thing about us guys that you know is that Mike and I are all, and even my dad too, we're all about the old school stuff. If they went back, if the NFL and NBA, even baseball, some of these other sports, if they went back to the old school jerseys of some of these things, we would not be upset about that. I'll tell you that right now, guys.
And let's get real here. Even when the Tennessee Titans do their throwback, once or two
Still
times
nice.
a season game, and they put on those
Real nice.
those Houston Oilers blue jerseys, is there not one? I mean, that and like a Charger baby powder blue jersey, are these not the classic jerseys for all you guys out there and some women that love all
Yeah.
that throwback stuff and the colors and things like that? There's nothing like the Houston blue and the Charger blue. So Bud's got Campbell at 2. All right, Bud. Now again, folks, all throwbacks. All throwbacks. Eric Dickerson, Bud.
Mm. Eric Dickerson. I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go 4. 4 with Dickerson on that one.
4.
I
Okay.
really,
I knew
really
he
like
wouldn't
that
be.
dark blue and yellow together. That mixture together is actually really really cool. Um, Plus, I wasn't a huge Dickerson fan. Um, Mostly because I didn't get to see a lot of him play. Obviously, I know what he was about. I know how great he was. Obviously, the first 2,000-yard rusher um, after OJ. But he also is the highest one, too, at that point. But there's something about that jersey, that blue and that yellow, that is just really, really nice. It's just
That's what I was
really
curious about.
nice. It shines great. It's not a bad player either. It's the Rams. I'm not opposed to the Rams either. I'm not a huge fan of the Rams, but I also don't not like the Rams. So, no, but it's a great jersey. Great jersey. I like that. But I'll put it at 4. Put it at 4.
Yeah, see, one of the beauties with Anthony, folks, is I mean, Anthony, he's got that, he's mid-30s now, but he's always because of his dad and me, he's so familiar with, the history of the game and stuff like that. So if you ever present him something that was even pre, what Anthony saw growing up, he knew through videotapes and things like that and everything. So Anthony's, his knowledge of the history of games, regardless of the sport, is deep. And so that was one reason I was curious about this. And he loves jerseys, as we know. So, okay, so Bud had Campbell at 2, Dickerson at 4. So my next one for the guy, for Mr. Alvarez, is Walter Payton.
Peyton. Yeah, oof. I'm kind of wondering on this one for sure. I'm gonna have to go Peyton at 5. I have to go Peyton at 5 because It's a
5.
Bears.
Okay.
I'm not huge
Bears
as
are not a
far as
sexy
their.
jersey. It's
That's
not
the
a
thing. It's
sexy
not
jersey.
that navy blue to me is not the best. I like a little bit of the lighter blue type. You know, I like the Carolina blue. I like the Ram blue, that darker type one, or the little bit lighter but still a dark blue, or the baby blue type stuff. But
Yeah.
it is still top five because it's Peyton too. That's the thing is it's Walter Payton. I mean, it's sweetness. I mean, who's to say that you ain't gonna have that? That's it's a great jersey to have. But as far as the team, as far as the look of it, I mean, Bears jerseys are just pretty plain to me for the most part.
Yeah. Now I will say this real quick, and Bud's right. There's two things about the Bears jerseys, and I'm pretty sure Anthony knows this because he just mentioned it. A lot of people, if they don't really look at the Bears jerseys, they
Yeah,
think they're black. They think their helmets are black. I don't know how many people over the years have said, "No, Mike, they're black." No, they're not. They're just a really, really
right,
deep, deep
exactly.
blue, and it doesn't always show itself. The one thing I do like about the Bears now, if I really had to pick, folks, if I was, and I'm not a jersey person, I really like the orange jerseys that they wear. I like the orange helmets
The
that they
orange ones
have
are bad. Yeah,
sometimes.
the orange ones
It
are bad.
just it has a bigger kick to it.
Yeah,
It just pops more for me than that blue. All right, folks. So Peyton at 5, Dickerson at 4, Campbell at 2. So here we go. Jim Brown.
ooh, Jim Brown. Ooh, it's funny when I got that when I had that one, I think I wore that one out the most. There's just something about having because
Really?
there's just something about a Jim Brown jersey. Going out, you ain't gonna find anybody wearing one either. It's gonna be very rare to see one because for one, people my age, especially people that wear jerseys a lot more, they don't know a lot about Jim Brown. Um, they obviously if the older folks don't wear as much jerseys too, so you might get somebody that's older be like, oh, that's a really nice jersey. Then you got Jim Brown type stuff. I'm gonna go 3 with Jim. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
I love Jim Brown. The problem is it's a Browns jersey and it is pretty plain too. But when you see the
It
name,
has no pop
but
to it.
when you see the name of it
Yeah.
and what
And the
it meant, the
32.
player that it was, it just it's great. I mean, it's iconic basically. I love the jersey for sure, but I'm gonna have to go 3 because there's no way I could put that as my number one over Campbell. That I just couldn't do that one, and I'm anxious to see who this last one is.
Yeah, see, and this is why I wanted to approach Anthony with this topic, folks, because I'm not necessarily using all of Anthony's favorite players. I'm not using all of his favorite teams, but Anthony knows jerseys and he knows players, and he's always been, he's been about that. So I was wanting to know if you pick certain players and he's going to look at the jerseys, what would be the ones what order he would put them in? Because I knew he'd have a
So
good
what's my
perspective.
number one
So
then?
we come to the last. I'm not even gonna have a suspense here. I'm just gonna throw it out to Anthony. Barry
Oh, that's
Sanders.
money. That is money. Yeah, I'm with that one. I'm with it. I could live with that. Yep, I'm good with that. I'm taking Barry all day. I'm glad I waited because I love that one. I'm taking Barry. I'm with that. Um, One of my favorite all time players. Definitely, I am a Lions fan outside of being a Bronco fan. I think in my opinion, he's the greatest running back ever. I don't care what anybody says. You could give me your Emmett Smith things all day long, but what he did in Detroit, what he put up, what he had to deal with on top of that, he never had a great line or anything. Plus, the not only thing I'm into the blue, the light blue, and I don't care which one it is. If it's the baby blue all together with the gray, or if it's the white, it's a beautiful jersey for just a great and not only that, guys. Barry Sanders not only was a great football player, great running back, great teammate. He's a great person,
Yeah.
on and off the field. Never had any issues. Nothing wrong with the guy. Um, Obviously, we all know that he stepped down right in the middle of his prime too, but he did it for reasons that I can respect. He just didn't want to keep pushing on. He wanted to make sure that he had a better life outside of football. He already pretty much did what he needed to. I mean, he never got a ring. He never got a chance to get one, but playing in Detroit, he never asked to leave, never wanted to leave. Did everything he could for Detroit to make them a better team, and he did. He got them to a NFC Championship game, I believe, at one point. So That's a lot to say for a team that was really struggling in the time that he was there. But absolutely beautiful jersey, absolutely great person. I'm glad that I held off on the Earl for that one because I think it wouldn't have killed me to put Earl at 1 and have Barry 2. But man, putting Barry at 1. And now that I look at the list, I actually like it the way it is. I think if you were to have just give me that list and I had to rank it off, it probably would have gone in that same exact order.
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned that because when I, and I pick players randomly, folks. I mean, I knew that Anthony he liked these players. Like I said, not necessarily his. If he said top 5 all time, Anthony's not going to have these top 5 guys. That's not what this is about. It's part player, jersey.
Well, I would say I'd say 3 out of the 5 you give me are
Yeah,
top 5
Dickerson's not
running
going to be
backs.
there.
Well, I would say Dickerson and Campbell might be out when Brown, Peyton,
Yeah.
and Barry will all probably be in there for sure.
Somewhere down the line, I'm going to revisit this with a different take. I can't tell Anthony what that will involve, but it'll be a different take on it because I love his jersey, his love for jerseys because it speaks to his love of the game. Because Anthony really loves throwback jerseys. He loves top, current jerseys, but Anthony's also always fallen back on the throwback jerseys
And
too
it's not
because he
just
understands
football
the
either, though.
history.
That's the other thing.
Exactly.
I have what do I have? I have
You got basketball, hockey,
I
college.
got Ruth. Yeah, because I say I got a Ruth jersey. I have a Griffey jersey.
You got a Brooks Robinson or
Jackie Robinson jersey.
Jackie Robinson.
I got
Yeah.
Jackie on there too. I have a obviously I have to have a Jordan jersey, so I have my Bulls Jordan jersey. Who else? Which one do I have? Well, I have a throwback. I have actually Jordan Bulls and UNC jersey, both with those two. So
I think that's one.
I got a Magic.
Was
The Magic Johnson one is pretty nice too. I got that Magic, that purple Laker one.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty nice.
Yeah. So for my first one,
that old Grant Hill one too. That's pretty nice though, with that old Pistons, the turquoise.
Yeah. And he's got a Pistol Pete Maravich jersey.
I do.
And you're talking about obscure, but anyway. So I wanted to hit Anthony with something more personal and more to his love of the game. Next time, folks, I'm going to go a little bit more national so everybody can fully relate. But everybody loves throwback jerseys if they're really into sports. And I knew some of you'd get a kick out of that. And like I said, Anthony loves that. And I do too, actually. But I always love his takes on anything and everything.
No, for sure. I liked it, Mike. Thank you for doing that one. That was pretty fun to do. Definitely. So, well, guys, appreciate you guys. Hopefully you guys were able to tune in. I know we kind of threw a little bit of a loop not doing it last night. Sorry, my kid was a little sick. Made sure everything was good with him. We were going to do our regular podcast last night and then do a selection show for you guys today. But luckily we were able to get both of these in for you guys. Get some March Madness in, which is great going on now. So, and then kind of just do a little bit of things that we wanted to talk about. Have some fun and then get these ranked things in. Let us know how you guys feel about the ranked these. How we've done with the first two. Let us know how, if you guys have any throwback jerseys that we may have not mentioned, some that we might not even have, that we might not know of, or give us a name of somebody that, brings back some memories to us. We definitely
Favorite player, favorite jersey, any of that.
Yeah, for sure. Let us know. We'll definitely, or if you guys have something you want us to rank, let us know in the comments. We'll be looking at those for sure. But appreciate you guys being here with us tonight. I'm glad we can get this on, Mike. We're looking forward to this tournament coming up for sure. Like we both talked about here, I think this is one of the best brackets we've seen in a while.
Yeah.
Really, really good teams. I think it can go a lot of different ways this year. So we're going to, like I said, Mike and I will get into our brackets. We're going to be doing them probably throughout the week now once we can kind of digest a little bit more. We just kind of wanted to give everybody like a little insight about what we were talking about. Maybe if we can, maybe help you guys out with some of your brackets, pools that you guys are in, just to kind of talk about a few games. But we also are going to get in to our brackets next weekend, next Saturday. Kind of already talk about a little bit if we've had some upsets, how the games have started off for the first few rounds, things like that. So hopefully you guys tune in next Saturday. We should be in 6:30 Mountain Standard Time next week. But like I said, appreciate you guys being here. We love doing this, and I hope we can keep giving you guys a great show. I hope you guys enjoyed our first episode last week. If you haven't caught it, please tune into it and hit that like and subscribe and let us know, because hitting that like helps us more than you guys know.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add to folks that Anthony and I, we're still in the discussion stages of this, but we're looking at also potentially jumping on here and there if something comes up, that type of thing, maybe 30 minutes to an hour. Just depends, obviously on our schedules and stuff. But we know things happen in sports daily, on the hour, sometimes by the hour. So and there's stories that people like to jump on and cover. So we're in the discussions of seeing what we can do with that. And if something comes up, we might jump on real quick and offer our opinions about that. So that's something that we're discussing and hoping to potentially put into the works. But and so we're excited about that. But aside from that, as Anthony said, just again, your likes, your comments, your suggestions, all those things are greatly appreciated. And you just joining us each week is thoroughly appreciated. But and again, as I like to say, what you see, what you hear on this platform, on this podcast every week does not happen, cannot happen without this gentleman to my right or my left, depending on your view. He is just a computer savant. It's his brilliance, it's his insight, it's his creativity that makes this happen. So, as I like to say, my appreciation to Mr. Anthony Alvarez for all he does each and every week.
Well, I appreciate it very much, and this show doesn't go on without either one of us. Let's just be honest with that. We both have to be here. We both put in a great show. We put in as much as we can. Guys, we're constantly talking about stuff to do on this for you guys. So we try to put in the best work that we can. And like I said, let us know though if there's something we're missing or something you guys want to let us talk about, or that maybe we haven't heard enough about, out there. Bring it up. We don't mind talking about it. We'll try to
No,
get as up to date as we can on it, and then give our opinions about it. Or if you just want to let out some anger too, just like us, let us know. We'll be more than welcome to hear
yeah,
what you got to say too. So, but let us know.
yeah,
I appreciate you guys
criticism, improvement, any of those things. We're always open to each and everything that you folks feel is necessary. So we greatly appreciate the input.
for sure, for sure. Well, once again, guys, thank you very much. Please hit the like, hit the subscribe button. It helps us more than you think. But at the end, I hope you guys had a great weekend. If it is spring break for some of you folks, like it is me, enjoy the time with your kids. Get out and enjoy some fresh air. Get out and enjoy some park time with them, or just enjoy a movie night or something like that. Because that's what I'm gonna be doing with my kids for sure. We're gonna try to enjoy the spring break. Like I said, my son was a little under the weather, so hopefully we keep him inside a little bit. So we'll have to try to find some things to do inside. But if not, hopefully everybody has a great week. We'll be seeing you guys next weekend. Like I said, 6:30 Mountain Standard Time next week. So have a great night, and stay safe out there, folks.
Talk to you later, everybody.